From beyond the farthest reaches of our galaxy they come. Two brains pulsing with a strange energy. These space brains come to share their love of science fiction movies.
Hi, welcome to Space Brains, the show where we joy-watch sci-fi movies and then talk about what was good and what was great. I'm Surrey and this is Mark.
Hiya, tonight we're talking about Occupation. It was a 2018 science fiction film basically about a small group of Australian survivors in a little country town after a massive alien invasion, and they decide to form together to be like a guerrilla army against those damn aliens. Sorry?
They want to save the world. And so this is your spoiler warning.
Spoiler, warning.
Before you go on, go back and make sure you've watched this film or just accept that you're going to learn everything about the film tonight.
Which is what we do, but
Either way. So
take heed.
Then come back, tune back in and have a listen to us.
Just ignore the alien invasion, okay? Go back. No, it happens very quickly. So, what was your number one takeaway from Occupation, Surrey?
Number one takeaway is it's good to know football.
Football.
Because if you weren't
We all like
involved,
football.
if you weren't involved in a football match, you're in trouble. It's a well-known fact here in WA. I suspect that was northern New South Wales. AFL is very important, and if you're not playing it, well, yeah, I guess you're farming Buddha's hand, not alien fruit.
Yeah, that was a nice little touch to the Buddha's hand, I thought. I was like, hey, people eat that. I can buy that at my local Gilbert's. I mean, Jesus, is it such a bad thing? The aliens, they got good taste, hasn't it? I've never actually had one, but have you ever had a Buddha's hand?
No, some sort of citrus fruit, as I understand it.
Yeah, I think so.
They do kind of look alien.
So the aliens need to learn how to play Aussie rules football, according to your premise, hey?
Well, no. I need to.
You need to.
I do not play sport and I don't know much in the way of the rules of Aussie rules, so I'd be one of those people sort of left in the town getting colonised and occupied.
Yeah, that's true.
Cool. So good to know your sports.
Okay, fair enough. Just know that the captain, follow the captain, thy captain, thy captain.
Captain. The new and the old captain.
Yeah, the new and the old.
Yes. And so, Mark, though, is this a hope, warning, or experiment?
I'm going to put it under the hope, and hopefully because humans, they need to come together, work as a team to overcome a common enemy, right? And then even this movie pushes it to another level, which is that the enemy can then become thy friend if you work together.
Yeah, that was a good bit of the hope, I think, of this movie, is that they don't just try to destroy the enemy. These aren't space Nazis.
No.
Which we all know Nazis are.
Or
just
big creatures like Independence Day, you know, the big, whatever you call those big head.
Huge things. Anyway,
huge things.
No, they're, I do like the fact that the humans not only come together to defeat this plan of the aliens, but also then recognize that just murdering, like genocide, is not that cool, regardless of whether it's them doing it to you or you doing it to them.
Yeah.
It's not a cool thing.
And it's whether that, I mean, the humans in the story, basically all of them have to learn how to come together as a team and to unite and get over their differences, to work together to defeat the alien force, or, succeed in their plan. But then, unlike maybe other big alien invasion films where it's like, let's just annihilate them, nuke them, destroy the whole thing, and then, humans live. The idea here is, no, at the end, you're going to have some aliens probably still living, and do they want to be part of our society and part of our world? So I think it is hopeful because humans do succeed. They do overcome their differences. and they do succeed at the end, and then they even invite the aliens to kind of go forth from here.
To build a new world together.
A new world, yeah.
That's very nice.
But look, hey, am I right or am I wrong? Hit us up on social media. Let us know what you think about Hope, Warning and Experiment of Occupation. So what have you been up to lately in the science fiction world? Are you running the world yet, Surrey?
No, I'm not running the world
with your
yet.
science fiction
Very soon to be running the world.
Podcasts, all that sort of stuff.
No, I've been well, yeah, what I've been doing.
Don't talk about your home renos again.
Photo shoots. We did those lovely photo shoots.
We
I
did
put
do
up
a
some
great
new
photo.
photos, and I even, made my eyes a bit brighter, my teeth a bit whiter. That was a helpful thing for me to do. Yeah, it's always important to look your best.
Hey, I don't go on screen unless I've been in makeup for about 6 hours. You know
6 hours.
me. I need the face tucked back. I need the little alien tucked away in my stomach, and I need it all tucked up.
Well, I needed to do it all post-production. That's the way it works. So we did our photos, which is cool. There's some new photos up on the website, gravityundone.net/space-brains.
Yep.
You can check that out.
And I've updated the Facebook page.
Facebook page.
Photo, and there'll be
Space
more to
Brains
come.
Yeah, there's a whole lot going on there, so that's really cool. I've also been trying to make sense of this German science fiction series called Dark, which is on Netflix. It's a 3-season story arc.
Yep.
Which is really good because so many shows just keep going. They never have
they
an
never
ending.
end.
But this story has 3 seasons. It's a complete story.
Yep.
And it's very complicated and exciting. I do know that this is the show that Hamad Al-Sarraf mentioned that he was watching, and it's the sort of story he would like to be able to do with his filmmaking in the future.
Yeah.
And I have to agree, it was such a well... I can only imagine that the writers, if you haven't seen this show, it's one of these ones, it's sort of got... it's a little bit strange. I'm not going to give away any spoilers, but it's a bit sort of David Lynch sort of feel, a bit of Twin Peaksy coming in there. Like it starts off with a child going missing, and then like 33 years prior, this one of the characters' brothers had gone missing, and now it's his son has gone missing, and so it's like, oh, what's going on? And it's like, one of these true mystery gone missing type of missing. And then there's like a whole bunch of events are kicked off into action through that and through a couple other bits and pieces which I won't go into.
Sounds intricate.
And then it's these stories across different generations. So like there's the father whose son has gone missing. He's a police officer, and he's doing his thing with the police officers and some other adults. But then there's other adults involved in the nuclear power plant and the nuclear power plant. They're doing something or other as well caused by this. And then there's the kids, like who are the older brother, sister, and their friends of the missing kid. They're doing something, and these 3 groups all interact across different ways where you see someone doing one thing in one area, and then later on you'll see the impact of that coming through somewhere else.
Yeah.
And you're just trying to keep all of these threads and these characters. There's probably about 10, 15 characters, and they're all doing, and it's all very subtle. There's not like aliens have invaded, we're going to go and stop them plot, which is, you can kind of go, they're the good guys, they're humans, and they're the aliens, they're the bad guys. Yeah, it's an amazing bit of science fiction, because there is science fiction elements in there that they talk about some science theory, and I'll let you watch it because
sounds interesting.
It is just amazing.
Sounds a bit like, and obviously very different plot, but it's like, how Lost had that kind of idea going on for a few seasons there. They kind of took you down the rabbit hole of different time frames happening in different people's lives, and and then when you got involved, and sorry if this is a spoiler, but like the others kind of had their episodes where you started to learn about their side of the fence, and you know what I mean? Like, and in your brain at the time, I really remember with Lost, and it's why I got a bit hooked on it. especially those first kind of 2 or 3 seasons, it was like, it was hard to put it all together as a picture, wasn't it?
Yeah,
You know, like to
and
really see it.
That's much like this. It's building. You can tell that there's this underlying plot of they're trying to resolve this mystery of this missing child.
Yeah.
But that's kind of kicking off
all this other stuff.
You know, like the cops having an affair with someone or other, and then that other person there discovers something or other. And
yeah.
The person who's running the nuclear power plant has to inform everyone that it's been closing down, but this is the primary industry of this town.
Yep.
So it's going to be basically the end of the town, really. And,
yep.
And there's all this stuff going on, and you just know that you're only seeing little snippets of some bigger picture that you can't understand.
Yeah.
And the good thing is, unlike Lost, this has a defined end and a story arc, and we were hooked all the way to the very last episode where everything started to click in place, and then they used some really nice little montages to sort of realign events and the significance. So you could see this one couple went and did something or other, and then which you'd seen them do, like it wasn't a new bit of footage, and then they showed another couple of people doing something else again, and you suddenly realize, that's why that happened, of course, because they did that. That means that this happened.
Maybe we need to do an episode. Sorry.
It all winds up at the end to this amazing, and you sort of you just left going, finally I got it, you know. So very, very, very worthwhile. More shows like that, please.
Yeah, sounds cool.
More shows that have a defined start and end. More shows that have a conclusion that does actually, it doesn't fully destroy all mystery, but it gives you that, that heartfelt sort of sense of completion.
It's funny you say that, because even like I mentioned Lost, I remember them saying in Lost they had the ending done, right, when they first started it. But then the other day I read an article popped up, on the social media feeds, saying that in fact they had it for a 3-season show.
Yeah.
Right? And then in the midst of kind of going into the 3rd season, they were told, you're not finishing now.
Yeah.
Like that's what they were told. The producers, the creators were told, you've got to make this go for longer. Like we're not stopping this because it was a big hit. And then they did. So you do wonder, because a lot of people go, it got a bit crazy at the end there and we didn't really quite understand what was going on. Yeah. It went off on tangents. And although I kind of enjoyed the ride along the way at the time, I know going back it can feel a bit funny, but reading that article was really interesting because, I think J.J. Abrams and a couple of other dudes, I don't know all their names off the top of my head, but apparently they sort of pitched it as a couple of season show, and it was all going to end up, and they were happy with that. But because it was a big rating success and it was like this juggernaut of a show in the US, that the producers and the network said, no, you're not stopping this. We're going to run it again, and we're going to run it again.
That's exactly how it felt.
Because it's interesting, isn't it?
As I said, the first 2 coming to the 3rd season felt like, you got this coherent mystery. And then I remember getting in towards the end of the 3rd season. The 4th season was just kind of like, you guys don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, are you just deliberately doing this?
You're making stuff. And then, so I stopped watching until maybe the last half of the final 7th season, is it?
Yeah, I think maybe, yeah.
And I just started watching from that point, and it all made sense. So I was like, this is probably what should have happened at the end of, during season 3.
And then, unfortunately, I've heard there's a good, I would class it as sci-fi, fantasy, The OC. Did you ever watch that? And it's a really bizarre show. It's a very bizarre show about, a woman that kind of suddenly comes back, and then she talks about this sort of parallel universe and all this sort of stuff where she came from. She was a missing young woman. That's kind of the setup, and it's a very odd show as well. Like the way it's put together, it's a little bit Napoleon Dynamite and whatever. Anyway, the main woman who the actress, she also created the show with the director, so they did it together. And apparently they'd pitched it to Netflix. It's a Netflix original, and as 5 seasons, and they were happy with that. So that's what they got funded. However, they've made the 2 seasons, and then it's been axed. So Netflix have just cut it now.
Yeah.
Which I'm really, because I've watched both seasons, and it's like, I watched the second one thinking, this goes for 5 seasons, there's no problem, because there's a huge cliffhanger at the end of the second one, and then that's just it, which is really then disappointing. But yeah, again, it feels like that. Like apparently I read this article during when the first season just come out that she was saying, yeah, it's a 5-season arc. It's all planned out, like how the characters go on this journey, you know, obviously, as you and I know with characters' journey. And you feel that. It's a really interesting arc, her story.
Did you ever see that?
So, yeah, it's a shame that one ended.
Did you ever see the show Babylon 5?
No.
Michael J. Straczynski, I think it was.
I know the one, yeah.
So that was sort of the other way around, where there was a 5-season arc, and it was like, it starts off, it's kind of a bit Star Trek-y. In fact, I suspect that this was the first science fiction show, or maybe even one of the first shows that had a continuing story across seasons. Because back in the day, even when you're talking, say, X-Files, one-shot shows, they're like NYPD or whatever, you know, like your NCIS or whatever, like that. Individual shows, same characters.
Well, X-Files had an understory going,
but only
the whole time.
after the first season or second season or so. Yeah. The first season was pretty much just individual. Oh,
very
cases.
Individualized. Yeah, it's formalized.
And there was no story there.
No.
The second season had a couple of episodes that sort of had connections, and then by the third season, they started retrofitting storyline.
But the only thing the only but to that, sorry, I'm going to butt you here. I'm going to fight you over this one. Is Mulder's backstory of his sister and that.
Yeah, but this happened was like after Babylon 5.
Yeah.
This is what gets me. So Babylon 5 came in along with like Deep Space Nine.
Yeah.
Towards the end of Next Generation. So the last couple of seasons, Next Gen, first DS9, Babylon 5 came in, and it starts out seemingly individual episodes, and these two characters would usually have a bit of wine time at the end and a bit of a talk, and their races were fighting each other or were in conflict, but these two ambassadors on the space station would kind of have their little moment to talk, and they'd sort of, you got the feeling that they're kind of didn't want to be, or didn't think they should be fighting. There's something else going on.
Okay.
And as the show went on, it introduced these. I remember at the end of season 1, you discovered there's some alien race called the Shadows that these two fighting people knew about. The reason Babylon 5 kind of comes into this discussion, though, is because the end of season 3, the showrunner was told, you're not getting your 5 seasons. You got 4th season. That's the end of it. So he went, oh shit. Season 4, he quickly accelerated the plot, like because he wanted to get the finished story out. But of course, halfway through season 4, with the accelerated plot, ratings picked up because like people was going, oh, this is getting really good. Like, and I remember. It was like nothing I'd ever seen. I'd never seen a sci-fi show like this before. In fact, I don't think I've seen any show like this before this, where it had gone from being individual episodes with like a little bit at the end of each episode to being sort of individually episodes but with a fairly strong continuing building story, and you're always waiting for the next installment type thing. To season 4, where it was just every episode was just as if it was a longer movie chopped into individual episodes.
Right.
And so you like more like Game of Thrones. Where it's just, the episodes aren't an arc in themselves. They're kind of just part of a bigger story. And so it's really exciting. Of course, partway through season 4, when he's like, it's all coming to a head, and then, big ratings said, oh no, okay, you can have your season 5. And he's like, are you kidding me? And so the thing is, it basically sort of finishes. Season 4 is kind of the end. Season 5 then is this weak season because it's like the main story's gone, and so he sort of so that was kind of the other way around, where it was robbed of the full length but accelerated.
Squished, accelerated.
Funny enough, the acceleration actually improved ratings.
Yeah.
Because at the time, no other I'm not going to say no other show ever, but none in that genre for certain had this strong, because like Next Generation Star Trek was just like the original Star Trek. Each individual episode, they had continuing characters, and they had some, callbacks to earlier episodes, but there was no story. And DS9 started out the same way, and then I think most of the way through, like maybe season 3 or 4, Babylon 5, DS9 started to have some continuing story arcs where they have like these rebels and bits and pieces. And X-Files also came in on that period, so that was, I'm not going to say Babylon 5 caused it, but certainly the movement to having
encouraging,
these storylines occurred around then.
Yeah. I think once we get into kind of the world of then like HBO, and I'm talking way back like mid-90s, you know, and they do not science fiction at all, but they talk about Sex and the City. It was HBO's really big outrageous show that, again, like HBO sort of took away the formula a little bit as well, and that probably built off that idea where they said, do you know what, audiences don't just have to have that singular story that everything gets wrapped up in one episode. We can kind of keep rolling stories over. We can have a bigger arc. A character can go from A to B from the start of the season to the end. We can twist and turn plots and stuff like that.
And that's where you get those other, I guess, like Ally McBeal.
Yeah, shows
which is following a character and her, I never watched the show, but her growth through it all.
She changed a lot.
And like Gilmore Girls, about the same sort of time. Again, it was a growing arc in a story.
Yes, So I think there was a bit of that shifting over. So we should get into occupation.
Well, let's talk about occupation.
The only thing I'll say is that, my website's up and about, markregan.com.au. Put a little shameless plug in there.
Get there.
And I've been filming, but not filming science fiction, because that is my next project coming up, is a science fiction short, but that's not what I'm doing at the moment. Filming for someone else.
Someone else
that's very important.
Someone else that we know.
Just let's say a filmmaker that we know.
And a filmmaker
that's
who
close
is
to us.
Significant and who is other.
That's it. That's all I'm going to say. But it's got nothing to do with science fiction. But check out the website, because there's Space Brains is on there just in a very different way, actually. Yes. So there we go. So it's another way to find the place. So Occupation, it is an Australian science fiction film. What we said even before we pressed record tonight, I think it's interesting because with Hamid, we kind of talked about science fiction in Kuwait doesn't get probably made that well, or it's not really that existent as a product. And it's quite similar in Australia. We don't really get a lot of these genre-specific films, but
we do get a lot of science fiction filmed in Australia.
We do get it filmed in Australia, but not so much from the Australian point of view,
not from the Australian cinema industry, if you like. It's more the case that we've got some good locations, some cheap sound stages, and some good, effects people and so forth. Yeah,
definitely. We've got the talent here to do it, but we just don't tend to invest in it. But Mr. Luke Sparke, who's the writer and director of Occupation, seems to have really taken that on board, hasn't he?
Although I suspect since the production company that funded this was Sparke Films, I have a sneaking suspicion that he largely funded it himself from his own company.
I have nothing
seems to do a lot of
that myself. That sounds
production,
good to me.
prop, and costuming, and what do you call it? Script development, a few other bits and pieces that Sparke Films does. Fully funded this, which is
he's just gone out
fantastic.
there and I know. And look, to be honest, the thing is, I can tell you a lot of people I've dealt with, and I'm only at the starting point of trying to get funding through screen agencies. And this is the thing, they don't quite often fund a film like this. So someone like Luke Sparke, it'd be great to speak with him and see if he could let us know a little bit about that funding. I mean, he might have tried to get some funding and been shown the door, because this isn't the kind of thing we fund.
It's a bold movie.
And it's a major bold movie.
Massive concepts. It's pretty impressive.
So look, Luke Sparke is the writer and director. We can probably finally pronounce his name.
Luke.
Luke.
I've been saying Luke before.
Luke and Sparke. I mean, I suppose it could be Sparky.
Sparke.
Or Sparke. There's no little apostrophe.
No.
And then apparently under writer, we've got Luke, and we also have Felix Williamson, which I can say as well, for additional dialogue, which is really interesting. I'd love to know what that actually means as someone that's an author and a screenwriter. I guess they've come on board and added some of the dialogue, punchy lines.
Isn't he one of the actors in the film? I believe he is.
Felix.
If he's the one,
he is actually. He plays Seth Grimes, who's like the cowboy radio presenter. Yeah,
you
right.
know where I know this guy from though?
Yep.
Domain.com.au did a web series,
and he was part of
called, I can't remember what it's called. Yeah, it's a comedy.
Yeah,
and he's in that, and like all the characters in that all wear like these black and white stripy shirts, and they're all very fashionable and hipstery and so forth. When I saw him on this, I just couldn't. I just kept thinking of that character, which he did so well. But No, it's good.
He's a good working Australian actor. I mean, I'm sure I've seen him in some
been in a lot
TV
of stuff.
shows and probably Underbelly,
Police Rescue,
and,
Water
yeah,
Rats.
those kind of things. Yeah,
I'm looking at all these things. That Welcome to Whoop Whoop. I mean, that was a good show. Good movie. Oh, geez,
back to Blue Heelers days, old school stuff. Yeah, but he's been in heaps of movies. Underbelly, I knew it was Underbelly somewhere.
Underbelly, yeah. He was in Lost. We're speaking about Lost.
There we go.
What?
So that kind of caters that. It was made in 2018, was shot in New South Wales, has a huge cast of home and away actors.
Home and Away, Neighbours.
But hey, that's what people get their starting point in Australian.
Felix was also in Home and Away.
There we go. So I wonder if the casting agent or if Luke was kind of connected, because there is a massive amount of Home and Away and Neighbour actors.
Well, Dan Ewing, the lead of this, was in Luke's first film, Red Billabong.
Right.
Which is, and I believe Felix is in that one as well.
There you go. So
I saw that. I've only seen the trailer for that one, and I'm pretty sure I saw Felix's face in there. But certainly Dan Ewing is billed on the placard for.
So they've
Red
worked
Billabong.
together before. It's very common. Directors and actors work ongoing like that. So the opening image, we have this grand big shot of Sydney, don't we? Coming across the harbour, the water, the city. We kind of have these aerial shots, very epic. We have a voiceover.
That voiceover statement thing, was that taken from anything? Is that supposed to be something? I didn't. There was no attribution to it, but
I don't think so. I think that's just Luke. I think that's just Luke speaking to us. I think he's just given us that epic opening. It
was really well done. Like, I was quite convinced that it sounded like you could imagine that being an actual address.
Yeah.
Given by someone somewhere.
Not an Australian politician, but like
it was an American
politician.
accent that had it. And it was an interesting choice to choose an American accent. That's why I was wondering if it was actually like a clip from somewhere else. I couldn't
Maybe,
sort of find it.
I couldn't think of an attribution. And basically this voiceover was saying that humans have all these differences, but maybe we could come together if we had a common enemy, which is what I said earlier about really the hope side of it is that, well, that's what happens in this story. People have to get over their little petty differences. You and I have so many bloody petty differences, Surrey, over all these films we talk about.
No, we don't.
Yes, we do.
No, we do. I'm going to fight you over it.
Oh, stop it.
Fight you that we have no differences.
Look, put your pants back on. Let's get back on with talking about the film.
You know, I don't talk without pants on.
So then we go to Simmons, our main character, played by Dan Ewing, and he's a traffic controller, and he's working on this big road project. There's cranes, there's diggers, there's all those things that you expect, manly things, Surrey, stuff that I know nothing about. But he's drinking on the job. He's doesn't really give a shit about his job, I don't think it looks like. And he's also, does he pop a couple of painkillers straight away with alcohol? I don't know, something like that. And anyway, this farmer starts yelling out of him that he's taking the piss at how long this is taking. It's extremely
45
Australian.
minutes, his
45
fruit's going to
minutes
go
he's
off.
been waiting.
He's got the fruit ute, and his fruit's going to go off in the sun.
I was thinking, that is a long time to wait at one of those things. But then again, like in the country, sometimes you do have to wait at those stop signs for quite a long time.
Yeah.
It's not the city here. It's not the city. And he argues with this farmer, and then anyway, he sort of like polishes him off for another worker, doesn't he? And then just gets off and just takes off. Good on him, knocking off.
Yeah, knocking off.
Thank God it's Friday.
Says, I'm out of there.
Tears out of the town and picks up his brother-in-law, Marcus, and they kind of have a little bit of banter. And in the car about his sister or his wife, Amelia. Yeah. And you're looking at me like a bit like I don't know what I'm talking about.
No.
Anyway, so it's like I think what we've kind of realised here, or what Luke was setting up, is this guy's a bit of a deadbeat. He's a bit of an alco. He's a bit of a
peaked in high school.
Yeah, he's sort of like he was the jock of the town, maybe if it was an American town, but in Australia, he was the captain of the football team back in the day. Not anymore. He's had his heyday, really, hasn't he? He's sort of been there and done it, and then now he's on the way out. So he's a bit of a has-been.
He has been, will be.
Yeah. And anyway, so then we go from that. There's this nice little family arrive in town in a camper van.
Recreational vehicle.
And we have, who do we have? I love this guy.
Peter.
Because I always think of Once We're Warriors, this guy's going to beat the living shit out of you.
Temawara Morrison. He was also Jango Fett in the Clone Wars. And he was all the clone soldiers.
He was.
Yeah.
He's in all sorts of movies over the years. He's really
Is Moana's dad?
Moana's dad, yeah. But he's in all sorts of movies. Like, he's never obviously been the hero, but he's played a shitload of characters. He's made a working actor. That's what you call a working actor, Surrey. He gets out and he tells his teenage daughter, texts his teenage daughter to get off her phone.
Yeah, come on
and
out.
come and experience a bit of small town charm.
Bit of Australia.
Australiana, which is a bit of irony because I don't think he's Australian, he's Kiwi. But they all claim it.
As I said, some of the best
Sydney,
Australians are New Zealanders.
Yeah, but quite often they're from Canada. They're from England.
Well, Amelia is... not Amelia. Who is that other one?
Amelia's Canadian. She was born in Canada.
Amelia... No, she's the Hong Kong actress, Australian. No, it's the other, the nurse who's... Vanessa with the current... She's a Canadian. She's a Canadian. Sorry. She was in the 100 as well.
She was in the 100.
There's a few Australians in that show.
Yeah, there is.
Also Home and Away.
Home and Away, yeah. Peter, he's the dad, and Bella is played by Izzy Stevens, and she's the sort of tormented teenage girl that, of course, hates being on family vacation.
She's been taken away from the big city to see some shitty little town.
Just on a side note, sorry, I see this these days, and I'm like, oh, man, you've got it good. You're on a family vacation. Yeah. There's nothing else to fucking going on. Like, I would trade that. I would go on. I'd put up with Peter as my dad.
I know. Your parents will get you your food for you.
Food.
They'll drive you around.
Yeah. All you get to do is listen to your music, look out the window.
It's not like you've got to organise insurance or home
loans
or building. You don't have to do any of that business.
And time is like wondrous. Like, there's not really a clock as there like there is now. Ugh.
I think she'll only appreciate that in the future.
She will.
When her kids are like, Mom, why do we have to hold hands with this alien? So, it's just because it's so much better than him killing you.
Yes. Anyway, so Bella wanders the town. They've got this sort of marketplace going on near the footy oval, and there's a big sign, Save Our Town. She, of course, wanders around doing some footage of herself, saying how lame it all is. And she comes across this guy called Dennis, who's a bit of a dero. He's a bit of an artist.
He quite obviously looks like a street hustler.
Yeah, he's a bit,
well, in a country town.
But he's nice to her.
Well, what I found surprising is how quickly she is willing to, like, personally, I'm sort of going, look. She's from the city. Yeah. She'd be going through, like, seeing people going, $2 for your sketch, like, do it, and you're sort of going, you're not the sort of person to be
talking to,
getting around because, look, in fact, the cop comes up and then makes him move on, and you're sort of thinking, that's the sort of trouble you're going to get into. Like, do you really want to be
She's a teenage girl, damn it, and Peter's her stepdad. She's going to act up if she wants to, sorry.
Oh, yeah.
This is the thing, I think they're attracted.
But wouldn't she act up by going with, like, a real straight-laced, non-murdering...
No, it's not how it works.
Non-murderer, non-gangster?
You've got a daughter, I've got a daughter. We're going to learn this the hard way in about 10 years, okay? So just look forward to that. They're going to go off. They're going to go off the grifter just to annoy us.
Yeah, but that makes sense to me, though, because I'm not.
Yeah.
Her stepdad, Peter, is an ex-con.
Yeah.
For running with a gang.
So she should go off with like a stockbroker.
Like an accountant or something.
Take this, Peter.
A doctor.
Look at this
or
guy.
A lawyer.
He's got a degree.
Or a police officer.
Yeah. That would be who she should go with.
That would really piss him off.
Yeah. Anyway, so we learn that Simmons. Look, I don't know if they're married or not, but they're together with Amelia. She's a good, hard-working Australian Asian, isn't she? Because she's running a restaurant and getting a law degree.
Yeah, and her mum doesn't approve of her choice of partner.
No. And in this, they reveal that Simmons has a bit of an ongoing head injury.
Yes, he had
which they kind of play
off. He was in a coma.
Yeah.
At some point.
See, this is what happens when you play AFL. Sorry, I know you've missed out on this experience, but this is quite common in the AFL that you get head injuries and you end up in comas.
Well, that would explain the AFL players I've talked to.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They won't remember you.
Play enough games of AFL and you won't remember your first one.
That's right. You'll never remember your first. Nothing like your first one. You can't remember it. So we get to the football field and we have this young buck, Jackson. He's an up-and-coming captain. And his girlfriend Vanessa is up the duff.
Do it. She
But
comes in a nurse's scrub.
She does.
Says, I'm preggers.
Yeah.
And you're waiting for him to go, is it mine? Because that's like the dumbest thing to say.
But
ever.
no, he's into it.
And
He's into it.
He sort of waves a little bit and goes, oh, that's so good. Are you sure?
Yeah.
And she sort of indicates that she's a nurse,
Yeah.
which somehow means that she is sure.
She knows.
Maybe she just like spoke to the ultrasound person. They got the heartbeat going. But yeah, so that's pretty good. And so he's really pleased with that. And then he's gets his luck wished to him for the foot. Is that the right way of saying? I don't know how to talk.
I don't know.
I don't speak English most of the time.
No.
Usually it's grunts.
He's off. It's going to be good.
He's
Gonna
off
be
to the
good
footy
on
game
him.
too,
Yeah.
and he's the new captain.
He is, and this is where we get a bit of tension between him and Simmons. So Simmons has sort of been brought in as the trophy that he's back out there tonight. He's playing a game.
This is a save our town game. They're the drop bears. Do you see that? The drop bears is the team. And Jackson, of course, hands him his helmet and says, "Make sure you wear your helmet."
Yeah.
Which I think it's one of those. It's a bit old school trying to unman him.
Yeah, he is. He's trying.
But he's like, I don't know if that's really as valid coming into current day where you to go, thank you, that's very kind of you to be considerate like that. You're right. However, I wish to risk my life, which he does.
Yep.
He chucks the helmet away.
So the football game starts, and it kind of comes up pretty quickly that Simmons is a little bit past it. He's struggling to keep up. He makes a bit of a bad kick. He stuffs up. Jackson's not happy about it. So it's all not really going too well for him. And, it's not looking that well as a saviour footy game for the town or whatever it might be. And all of a sudden the
power goes out, the lights flicker, cell phone, they lost cell coverage because at the very stage it said Peter texted his daughter and said, hey, come on out. And she was obviously, checking her social medias or whatever it is that kids do these days, TikToks.
The TikToks.
she was the TikToking.
Yeah.
Or whatever else it is that kids do these days.
The kids these days.
And but then she tried to send a message to him saying
she couldn't the TikTok.
But couldn't the TikTok or put her photos on the line.
Yeah.
and so
that was disturbing, very disturbing.
So
end of the film.
So then we go that the lights go out, but then it's like some big noises
cool
and bright, multicolored lights, almost like thunder at first.
Yeah.
But there's lights coming over the hills.
They kind of come out of the ground,
and everyone's kind of, and fair enough, everyone's kind of going, "Is this some kind of show they're putting on? Like, is this like someone's really shelled out for the big money here?
Yeah, this is looking good
because they had the celebrity DJ there." Who was the Felix fellow with a big
Seth
mustache on, with the 93.7 country smile on your dial.
That's right.
Which I don't know, it's terrible. But then quickly, someone who is it that yells the first warning? Oh, it's the farmer, Fruit You.
He knows. He
goes, "Get out of here!" And that's when all hell breaks loose, and these spaceships come flying across, and there's lasers shooting up the oval,
explosions,
causing problems.
Yeah, and everyone just starts screaming and fleeing and panicking,
jumping over the fences, and then there's like troops come marching in.
Yeah, they do. They come out of the cornfield bloody quickly, don't they? They come out. Cane fields.
Yeah, we don't have cornfields in Australia.
No.
I'm sure we do. Look, if you're out there listening and you've got cornfields,
we do have corn.
Let me know where they are because I don't know. But cane fields, I've driven through. There's northern New South Wales. Cane fields,
you're correct.
Southern Queensland, probably most of Queensland actually.
These soldiers come out and we get a pretty good look, which again for me I was a bit surprised with because quite often in these sort of films. They don't give you details straight away, do they? They kind of keep a bit. But we get a good look at these alien soldiers. They've got hardcore armor. They've got these amazing long guns, laser guns, which they're firing off. There's also a bucket load of them that come out. They're very aggressive. They're very full on. They're proper. It looks like they're proper soldiers. Their masks are really cool. They've got a very distinct neon light down the middle of them.
Red crack down the face paint. That's
and
cool.
even their face is kind of the armor is just crackles across part of it. So it's a bit of a creepy looking mask, but you can tell it's a strong looking mask. So they've definitely got the upper hand. So people run, flee. I know Bella tries to run to get her mum, and like someone whacks her over. That sort of panic run.
Falls over.
Marcus actually
little
kind
Marcus,
of
who'd been eyeing her off at various other times, gone.
Yeah.
Because you got to think, and I don't know what it's like in a small country town, but you've got to be thinking there's a limited population, and as a teenage boy, you're looking at all of the population that would be
who am I breeding
amenable to your advances. And so when a new girl comes in, you kind of go,
you got to crack your look.
Ooh, interesting, something
new to the petri dish.
Yeah, she might talk to me because she doesn't know anything that's happened before.
That's right.
As he runs over and helps her up,
she doesn't know about the aliens,
which is great. See, that's oddly enough a little Marcus save the cat moment, isn't it?
It is.
He's the one. He's gone and helped her.
He's the one that saves her,
and he runs her off towards her dad, and then her dad takes her hand and then runs off and leaves poor Marcus.
I know, just
Marcus
leaves
is
him
there looking, going, "Oh,
yeah.
but I was the hero."
Anyway, so we have explosions and we have destruction. The police try to fire their guns and they're kind of like overpowered.
We're not like the United States. We don't have police with tanks.
No. Well, this is a country town anyway. This is just it's one cop car, two cops. But they're just totally overrun. And we end up, we also see the aliens starting to like actually take people prisoner. Like they're starting to herd them up.
Rounding them up and putting them in.
They're not just
corralling
letting them go. They're like putting them in.
And they're not massacring
batches.
them either, which is the important point.
Yes.
Oh, they kill a few, obviously. They've got to have their fun.
Yeah. Peter is with Bella. He's separated. He's lost his wife and son. And they kind of get back to their camper van. And this is where Simmons and Amelia kind of like, they get there and they're like, oh, get in the camper van. Let's, like floor it, get out of here. And he's waiting for his wife. He's like calling out to her. And then Jackson with the other footy player didn't get actually his name. And then he gets shot right, like in front of Jackson.
Yeah, that's a bit of motivation to
get out of there
process,
quickly, like to move. And they sort of hop in and the radio host, Seth, he gets, I think, a little bit wounded and Simmons grabs him and they kind of drag him into the van. They convince Peter, like, he says to him, "We'll find your wife, but let's just go now." And so, like, it's a really rushed decision, but they get out of there. And then instead of going down the main road, Peter actually kind of veers off right or left or
cuts
something.
Through the fields.
Cuts through the field and, and even Simmons, who's the country boy, is like, "What the hell are you doing?" He goes, "Well, I'm doing it."
You're crazy, mate.
And maybe this is where we're seeing a bit of Peter's because we don't know at this point, but Peter's backstory.
He's got a bit of a wild side.
Got a bit of a wild side. He's got a bit of an edge maybe to him. So they they get out of the chaos of the town being invaded. And then they're going along this nice, good old Aussie deserted sort of road. And a spaceship suddenly tracks them, flies past them, hits them, lines them up.
Their windows and comes up.
And then starts hunting them. And it's getting, obviously it's going to gain on them really quickly. It's gaining on us. And it's about to fire.
Make this go faster. This is faster.
This is faster.
Like you're going to outrun a spaceship
in a camper
van at all.
Yeah, I know. Anyway, it looks like it's about to fire and they're all going to be dead when the Air Force come in.
Yeah.
Boom. Which, to be honest, probably for the Australian Air Force is a little bit unbelievable. But hey, they were there. They showed up in the movie.
I don't know. Well, the thing is, the air bases are out.
They
in
are
country towns.
And we don't know. I mean, like later in the film, we learn that like there's an offensive in Sydney and stuff. It's like you don't completely understand. Like maybe they were just attacking this specific town to get that factory
but
to
what I
do
do
the virus,
like
so
though,
you just don't know.
And because it often bugs me about a lot of alien invasion type films, is the Air Force jet comes flying through and shoots it down, and there's no magical shields that magically protect it. There's no such thing in reality to have a force shield that will stop bullets.
Yeah, that's right.
You might be able to have a really powerful magnetic field to discourage energy weapons, but good old bullets. This blows it up, and that's good. Of course, the Air Force are a bit overwhelmed because of the number and scale, and these alien ships are better.
Yes,
but you get the drop on them, and you can knock them down, which is always nice to see. I hate it when movies just make the aliens just
Force fields.
magically invincible. And
The
you sort of
force.
go,
But anyway, so they're surprised, but they get out and Simmons looks and he says like, oh, there's no alien in here. It's an unmanned sort of
that's
flight.
also a nice touch,
Yeah.
I think, because we're heading that way ourselves. So
Yes,
there's
yeah.
less and less chance that there's a
pilot.
I can't remember what it's called. There's a new development that's coming online now where they're testing these unmanned, like not just unmanned drones like they have now, where they've got these drones who carry like a couple of missiles and just go around, but actual fighters like interceptor to shoot down air superiority fighters. And the thing is, drones aren't restricted in their G-force maneuvers. If you go above about 8G maneuver for more than about 20 seconds, human pilots pass out. So you're limited there by the flesh bag that sits inside the machine. But you go and just have a solid state computer system in there, and you can do the most ridiculous maneuvers that no human would ever survive. They just turn into slosh.
That's right. So it changes the way it looks, doesn't it? That. So anyway, and then as this happens, big bright light comes flying down the highway, and they're a bit like, "Oh, is it alien?" But no, it's the farmer.
Farmer, what was his name?
Arnold, maybe.
Arnold.
I don't know if that's right. I don't know. Correct me. Tell me who the farmer's name is. I don't think. It might be. Yeah, it might be old Arnold.
Charles Monsieur.
Played by Charles. No, probably not.
Oh, well, look, if maybe, I reckon Dan Ewing, if he got in touch, he'd be able to tell us who played that.
He would. Hashtag Dan Ewing.
Or if the guy played the farmer, embarrassingly enough, we don't have his name just yet. We could look him up. We'll look that up and
correct that later.
we'll send an apology email.
Yes.
But anyway, he rocks up and they have a bit of, and Jackson, no, who's with him? Dennis is in the tray. Has
the artist.
Jumped in. He points out how hard.
Vangabum.
He's had a bit of biffo here with the farmer fellow and saying, that the farmer's a very down to earth, salt of the earth sort of honest, hard working sort of person, and Dennis is a bit of a free spirit, so that they don't initially get on. It's stowed away, but then they decide they've got to get out of here. They can't have this conversation on the road, so they're going to go to an old farm and. Who is it that says, I know where we can hide? Dennis does.
Yeah, Dennis.
Dennis says, and that's why we keep him around, of course. He says, look, I know where we can hide.
He knows some of these places.
Everyone obviously believes that he does know some place to hide because that's what he does.
That's right.
So he jumps back in the car and they all drive off to this old farm. And for any European listeners, when we say an old farm in Australia, we mean maybe it's 60, 80 years old.
It's not that old. Probably like from the 80s or something.
It's not like...
It's been abandoned since the 80s.
I worked for a little while over in the UK, and one of the guys I met there and sort of became friends with, his house was over 600 years old. It's just...
No.
Okay, so no.
No.
There's nothing... There's no European anything in Australia that is that old.
No, not at all. And most of the old stuff we demolished.
Yeah. It's fallen apart.
We pretty much... It is then the next day after they've got into this abandoned place, and they kind of go into this major survival mode really quickly. Like they're kind of all doing little roles and little jobs. Marcus, for example, kind of talks about like how many supplies they have and what they should ration. They discuss like going to town or staying in safety. They discuss kind of staying, camping, what should they do? Bella and Dennis, like they do start like he talks about cutting the leaf off the branches so that it doesn't create lots of smoke. Like they're really sort of in a very. I was surprised actually. Like they went into a very quick survival mode, and maybe that was to sort of lead to the point that they're going to become a pretty sophisticated military unit really quickly, and maybe it needed to be shown that these aren't just people that are going to sit back and they need Mars bars to live.
I do have to say, though, one of the advantages of setting this in a country town is you've got people who are probably more likely to have survival skills. Like Dennis, if he were in a city and say he was homeless, he would know, where the bridges, underpasses were that were the best, where the public toilets were that you could use, where we could get water to drink.
Maybe running water or something, and stuff.
Where the 24-hour gym was that you could sneak in and make use of the showers. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. He would not know anything about fire.
Yeah.
But at a country town, of course, he's
That's
going,
right.
well, I know how to have a fire without much smoke, because if you have much smoke, first of all, it could be a bushfire ban season, so you can't do it. But also, he's probably on a farmer's property.
Yep.
And the farmers who start seeing smoke or fire about the place, they're going to get a bit pissed off that you're
on their
mucking about on their land without their permission. And likewise, the farmer fellow, sure, he's a fruit farmer and so forth, but he knows about the seasons and weather, and he'd know, a lot of that sort of stuff. So it's quite...
You're probably right that they've got more chance of living off the land.
Let's face it, if I could help you program a computer, but there'd be no computers to program because the aliens have destroyed them. So, I know how to garden a veggie patch at home, but that doesn't equate to much out in a farm scale.
But all this sort of survival group mentality is sort of split a little bit very quickly, because Jackson wants to leave. He wants to get Vanessa, his pregnant girlfriend. Let's get out of there. Seth, the radio host as well, he's like, no, let's just leave. Let's run.
He'd already indicated that this is not his hometown.
No, so let's just go. And they're all a bit unsure. And what they need is a leader, really, don't they? And it's revealed that Peter just got out of jail. So they're all kind of...
Well, that's, because Jackson says, what do we got here? We've got no one. We've got a bum and a farmer, and...
Like, we'd rather take the chances.
Do any of you know how to, kill?
Yeah.
And I think Bella points out that,
Peter
Peter ran with, I can't remember, some gang or other.
The Bra Boys.
Yeah, something along those lines. I don't know. They're mostly surfers, aren't they?
They are, but that's the only real gang I know in Australian history. I mean, apart from the bikies.
If you drop in on them on Maroubra Beach, they'll probably yell at you and stuff.
Slash your tires.
I don't know. They've got guns and things.
Anyway.
But no, he did. But they said that he ran with some, I can't remember, the underdog street gang or whatever it is.
Doesn't matter.
So Peter doesn't look too pleased that this history has been announced. But he points out, he does say, I spent 7 years in jail. I just got
out of the clink.
Yeah, 7 years in jail, which, again, for American listeners, that's basically because he killed someone.
Yes.
Like, you don't get 7 years. In fact, I think it's about 14 years for first degree, but 7 on good behaviour. So clearly, and as he points out, he's trying to reform. He's in fact moving his family away from the city, so he gets out of that lifestyle.
Yep. And then this is where Simmons kind of, the leader has to kind of kick in. It reminded me a fair bit of The Walking Dead. You need Rick to kind of settle the troops in a way. And Simmons says, no, we're going to stay and we need to go in town and look for our families. Like, we need to see what's happened to them. And with that, Amelia comes running in and's like, come on, you're going to come see this. And they walk out on this epic ledge and they're all in awe or shock or whatever you really want to say. But you can see up in the sky this just ginormous alien space. Yeah. It is massive, isn't it? It's huge.
It's like a flying city.
Yeah.
You don't know how high up it is. But
no, but it just
it's higher than the clouds, so it's got to be. You got to think, it's like where the...
And there's little dots, so you can imagine maybe they're the spaceships that are the drone things, and you're like, oh yeah, this thing is huge. We go for, it's very daunting because it's like, we're going to take on that, Simmons and Amelia and Dennis go to town, and this is where they kind of learn that they see the destruction. There's no survivors anywhere. And they kind of see the aliens doing things and taking over, collecting stuff. And it's also where they see that they're herding some people off. I think they're herding them off in cars or something, a truck or something, and then others they've got imprisoned. Yeah, they don't really know quite. They're herding some off to the other side.
They've got the big cage and...
Yeah, and it's the old abandoned factory that used to have where everyone worked in town that shut down. So they've taken over. Very, very logical of the aliens to take over that, I wonder if BHP is still working in the mining company out the back. They'd never shut down, would they? Even in an alien invasion, they'd just keep working.
Yeah, they'd just probably fly the aliens in.
Fly out. We've got jobs for you if you want. Come on in.
You've got your own spaceships.
Okay, great. Yeah,
we don't have to pay Qantas now.
Yeah, that's right.
And you pop.
So then they come back to the abandoned house and tell them, what's going on. And just as they get back, basically a spaceship scans their house, and the lights and the colors and all that overtake it, come through the windows. It's that really cool effect, and then it disappears. But they realize they hear footsteps, so they all go into hiding, and two alien soldiers enter the house.
Yeah.
And it's, a bit of cat and mouse stuff going on here.
Yeah, one of them smashes through a wall and grabs hold of Dennis the Menace. Yeah. And another one is menacing Bella and...
Yeah, there's a good bit of tension.
Simo and Peter pops. I'm surprised he wasn't called Simo.
I'm surprised too now.
I mean,
You've just said it. I hadn't even thought of it.
He's a footy player with the last name of Simmons, and he's not Simo. Whatevs. So Peter pops out with the gun that it was revealed he has.
Yeah.
Which was sort of one of the main reasons why Jackson stayed, I think, was the fact, okay.
He does have a gun.
There is something here. Because, again, Australia doesn't have a lot of guns.
No.
And certainly a handgun
I know.
doesn't exist except for
gang
police
members.
and
gang members.
And gang members.
Yeah.
Although I was talking to a cop friend of mine. He works in the training. And he says now, because it was since was it 97, 99? Or when was it Port Arthur?
That was 1996.
96. Yeah, so after 96, there was a big gun buyback.
There was, massive.
And all the laws changed. You can't have more than like 2 shots or 3 shots maximum. And only people with a valid reason to have a gun.
Yeah, you got to have licenses.
Are allowed to have one.
Yeah.
And everyone else, no, you can't just have one. And just having one for home protection is not a valid reason.
No.
And so as a result, my cop friend was saying that, they don't see handguns. Like certainly you don't see automatic weapons.
No.
And handguns, every now and then you'll get like an old revolver that sort of fell through the gaps. But he says the bigger problem now is you're seeing sawn down rifles.
Yeah.
And the problem with, of course, rifle bullets is they're a lot higher powered. And so they will go through buildings and through multiple people and the police body armor and things. So it says, it's uncommon to find guns. But nowadays, when you do find them,
it's a very
they tend to be these sort of
punch.
Old 303 rifles that have been cut down, and they're all farmer rifles and things. And they don't have like lots of ammo in them. They've only got a few shots. But I mean, how many do you need?
Yeah, that's right. If you go through the police car and take.
The mission has been accomplished. We don't have mass shootings.
Yeah.
But when it comes to raiding a bikie's compound,
they're probably going to have a couple of them.
Yeah, you get a couple of those things going around, and it's a bit of a pain in the bum.
So good old Peter then does fire his gun at one of these aliens.
Man, he goes,
but it doesn't really work. It's not going through the armor.
That's great. How many times do you see these people wearing armor and it does nothing?
I know.
I was just watching that movie Old Guard with Charlize Theron.
Oh, okay.
Not a bad movie, but there's all these guys wearing SWAT type armor, bodysuits and so forth. They're just one shot, they're dead.
Yeah.
You're going, why are they wearing the armor then? They got helmets and they got vests and.
But not for poor Pete. He fires away, and this alien just kind of laughs at him in a way. And then Simo, I'm going to call him Simo from here on, and attacks, and he does a good old footy tackle, takes him to the ground, but then it's just he starts getting the shit beat down.
Yeah, and
it's not long before that.
He's trying to hold the thing, and Peter's saying, "Hold him still," and trying to get a shot.
Yeah, but there's a good old beat in, and again, this goes back to the purpose of the film, that the others are in hiding and they're not really. The other one ripped out Dennis and stuff, and they're not doing well. But then they all realise that, it's the old strength in numbers, isn't it? So they all attack, and just at that moment that poor Simo was probably going to have his light switched off, they all attack and they kind of all get involved, and that's what does it, isn't it?
Well, they overpower that guy, and then Peter, of course, just puts the gun up under the helmet and shoots.
Boom. And I think, is it Vanessa or Bella that then fires one of the alien weapons?
Bella picks up the alien gun.
And so takes out the other one.
Shoots the other dude.
Yeah, and they examine the body. They're kind of all a bit disgusted by it. Blue blood and everything. So
As necessary.
And Simo puts the helmet on, which I always think is a fucking dangerous thing to do. Don't know what the hell is going to go on in that thing. But
it'd be smelly too, wouldn't it?
He does say it's smelly, and I like that. I like that they had that in this movie.
And that's not just, sort of speciesism against aliens. I think any soldier's helmet
It
you were
would
to
be
put
smelly,
it on
yeah.
after the
Be
fight.
stinky, it'd be sweaty.
That'd be gross.
That'd be gross.
If you're a
And
soldier,
they've killed him. Like, it could have blood in it.
if you are a soldier listening to this, get in touch. Is your helmet a bit gross after you've been running around the bush for a bit?
Yeah, I think so.
I think so.
And he realizes that they can see anything through their radar that's living. So that means that if we kind of go deep into the forest, deep into the bush, as we would say, they didn't say bush in the film; they said forest. I like that.
Yeah, that's
because Americans were like, "What?
We heard
we
about
go deep in the bush."
Yeah, the
You like to go deep in the bush?
team, the forest. Yeah,
But anyway, we go into the
hunting for
forest.
beaver in the bush.
Find anything in that bush. Sorry. There's you can you can see anything that's living, which means if we retreat further into the forest, we should be safe.
We're basically invisible. He's saying that, and we got a little bit of monster vision through the helmet, and
bit
sure
of
enough,
predator vision in a way. You know,
yeah,
like
the people were kind of sketchy to see. They were sort of pixelated, and
they were, yeah,
having trouble.
So then, and in that moment, they decide that we can sort of fight back. We can be a bit of a rebel force. And there's a beautiful, big, epic, low-angle shot of this kind of, you know, group of misfits in a way. But they look a bit powerful now. They've just taken out 2 aliens. They've got a bit of a plan. They've got a bit of information.
They've got to save the town.
Are they going to be able to save the town? And it kind of looks a bit promising. And I've got to say that then I like this as a plot point, that then we basically have a montage. So they kind of go into training mode.
Montage.
The farmer reveals that he was in the reserves many years ago, you know, for the Australian Army. So he knows a few little things, and he talks about that, you know, an occupying force can be overpowered.
You got to find out what their strategic point, what's strategically important to them.
Yes, and so they kind of, it looks like, well, maybe what's important to them is like humans. So they kind of, you know, they want to herd humans. So then that's how they sort of start attacking them, and they get more of their weapons, and they surprise it, and it's just real good old fashioned, what I would call like guerrilla tactics, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like coming out, you know, they trip them over. They like slice their heads off. They fire on them. They get them when they're least expecting, in little numbers. They're not going after huge armies. They're just going after the little guy. And there's this great montage because they kind of have some wins, but they also have some losers. Like the army, the aliens win. Sorry, and I liked that. So it's like they kind of set up a bit of a camp, and then the aliens rock up in disguises at the camp, and then they kind of like save some prisoners. But then you sort of see them being fired upon, and humans are dying, you know, like, so I kind of liked that. There was a real like tossing and turning, and they poison the water, like the aliens poison the water.
Oh,
so it's like, it's a nice little sort of.
No wonder these aliens' homeworld's ruined.
I know. But it was a good little montage. And they sort of surprise attack them, but the humans get out, and we then get this boom, boom.
Yes, which is convenient because we all know what happens in 9 months.
9 months. Vanessa.
Although, yeah, if she knew she was pregnant already, she would have been 6 to 8 weeks already pregnant.
Yeah, and it's not 9 months, is it? 9 months is an illusion because it's 40 weeks.
Yeah, it's something. So I don't know, but but that's irrelevant to the story. The story is because of common usage, that a baby is coming soon.
Yes.
That's why we've jumped to 8 months.
And I guess it does come pretty soon anyway, even though it is 8 months later, isn't it? It's pretty much then, anyway. Don't need to do maths. This is a science fiction film, sorry.
Yeah,
we're in the midst of the plot.
We'll lean more on the fiction then.
Yeah. So we come in, and Simmons and Amelia are sort of like, you know, they look like they're more militarized, and they come across this little girl, Chloe.
In cane field.
In a cane field.
Yeah.
And she basically, you know, they kind of, Amelia ease it, and she basically gives them an alien USB.
Yeah.
You know, and also she describes, and we see a little bit of a flashback, that they're experimenting on humans, and they've done something to her. She's got these scars,
got bandages and stuff,
and she's a bit mentally, you know, she seems a bit mentally tapped. And she's telling them that the humans are in prison. They're working basically as slaves. You sort of see them like working crops and stuff. Like the good old sort of chain gangs, really, isn't it? It's like the old prison gangs.
They're out there like cultivating the soil.
And the guards are all, overpowering them and stuff. And they're sort of surprised attacked by some of the aliens. And I think this is, I'm not sure, he was in it a little bit earlier, but there was an inclination of a bit of a general, wasn't there? Like a bit of a captain, commander, yeah.
You can tell
he kind of kept rocking up and going, damn it.
He has the cape on.
Yeah,
so you know he's someone important. Because there is a challenge, of course, and they had this same with stormtroopers, is how do you indicate they're all wearing these armor.
They're all
you
aliens,
can't see Jack, and let's face it, we don't know how to distinguish one alien wearing armor from another alien wearing armor.
No, totally racist.
Yeah, I know. It's just armorist. I should recognize their armor instinctively. Yeah. But anyway,
we don't.
One of them, you whack a cape on one of them, and they did this with the stormtroopers. Put a cape on one of them, or make one of them silver.
Yeah.
And suddenly you go, ooh.
Oh, that's the one. That's the leader.
That's the leader. Of
that's
course,
the bad guy.
In reality, in military, particularly when you're on active duty, you don't have distinguishing features.
No, so that we don't.
Because you don't want to have like the one silver stormtrooper amongst all the white ones. You go, I wonder if they're the commander. Perhaps we should shoot that one.
Yeah, kill that one first.
Oh, there's only one of them wearing like a cape type thing.
He must be important. No, he's just wearing a cape.
Get the guy just next to him in the red shirt.
That's right. Look, like my kids going to childcare, one of them wants to wear like a cape today. Like they're not supposed to wear capes. He wears a cape, and it's the same rationale with the stormtroopers. That guy's just wearing a cape today. He just felt like wearing a cape. Perhaps Darth isn't going to be happy.
Perhaps it is part of their standard uniform that they can choose to wear a cape.
I'm wearing a cape today, thank you, boys.
Yep. The rest of you can go with the samey armor, but I'm going to stand out today.
That's right.
Dude, we've talked about this. I don't care.
You're going to get shot. You're definitely going to get shot today.
But I look good doing it.
That's right.
Yeah, okay. So anyway, so there's the commander.
So there is the commander, and the gang kind of have got this plan that they come across, that they've detonated this. I didn't 100% get the point of this.
The idea was that there's some sort of a drop-off
okay,
where troops were coming from, they said.
Okay, yeah.
So the spaceship landed and then took off, and they go, okay, that's where the troops have just been dropped off, and they hit the button, and it goes boom.
Yeah.
And they blow up stuff, and they go, woohoo, we won. But Amelia's left behind, and she sees a parent with a child.
Yes.
So there's a few of them sort of having trouble, and like there's like clearly a non-combatant, like not wearing the armor.
Yeah.
With a child, or at least maybe they get smaller as they get older.
Yeah.
Probably not.
But also, I think there was that, and there's also another one that like who's been injured, and the other one like helps.
Yeah, helps.
So it's very human, isn't it? It's kind of like suddenly,
and it doesn't look military. It's not like they're all suddenly jumping action, picking up guns. Yeah. They're all kind of.
They're not wearing armor, and they're a bit like exposed. So it's a bit of the old like you feel for them. Suddenly,
yes, suddenly there's like, oh, actually, they're not just all. Again, they're not just space Nazis.
No.
You know.
So they're comforting each other. Anyway, so they return to camp, and this camp now, because it's the 8 months later, it's a sophisticated camp. It's got survival things going on. It's got water collection bases. It's got some sort of spider web thing that I was a bit unsure about.
A dream catcher,
massive dream catcher. There's quite a few people. Probably I thought about maybe 100 strong.
It is a small Australian country town. There will be at least one crystal wielding dream catcher carrying.
Very important to have that in there.
Person.
Sorry. Yep. That's the religion. Okay. That's fine.
You got it.
And there's probably about 100 or so humans, and they seem to like, as these guys come back in, they're the heroes of this camp. They're kind of like given a bit of a hero's welcome.
In theory, I guess over the past 8 months, they're the ones who rescued all of these people from enslavement. So it helps.
And it looks like there's a bit of training going on. There's a crossbow action going on. You know, they're a much more sophisticated camp. Anyway, Vanessa notifies Simo and Amelia and that came back from this explosion Jackson came back with something. He came back with an alien prisoner.
Yeah.
And so they walk into one of the tents, and basically one of the aliens is tied up. He's a soldier. And the point of this is they debate what they should do with him. And so Jackson's saying we should be able to get some information out of him. And then Amelia, I think, sort of saying, well, we should, look after him and, treat him normal. The farmer's a bit like that. The farmer's like, no, we should respect him and, treat him ethically. Yeah. So they have that kind of good old debate. Peter wants to rip his freaking head off and shit.
Yeah, but Amelia gets left with him for a moment.
He does. Yeah, she does.
And she whips out the USB and shows it to him, and he goes beep, beep, beep.
Yep. And he's
which I was immediately reminded of the Predator.
Yes.
Yeah, because it's similar. And I think it's a problem with those sort of gloves that these alien costumes always have is that you can't do fine
You
manipulation.
can't have little tiny buttons.
So what sort of manipulation can they do? They can go tap, tap, and swipe. And I just immediately thought of him going,
Boom, boom.
because that would be it. Like he sort of goes, "Oh my god, you brought a hand grenade." Okay,
Good luck.
Screw you guys. But he presses the buttons, and instead a space map
comes up.
Big
You can
3D
see
map.
Earth.
And it spins around and it shows like a path, a circular path through. And I wasn't entirely sure what it was showing me here, except that
you could see Earth, and it brought up a few of the, like for us, and even in these movies, they do quite often show the Sydney Opera House, and I think it was the big Jesus statue in Brazil, and I don't know.
That's what they call him too, the big Jesus.
Yeah, but I don't know what the name is. But it's
I
like,
think
they quite often, like
Savior.
Independence Day did it, didn't it? Perfectly. It's like, the spaceships come down and it's like the Sydney Opera House, and then it probably was the big Jesus, and it was like the pyramids, and it's the Big Ben.
Eiffel Tower.
The Americans go, this is what everyone thinks about the world, isn't it? Damn it. These are icons around the world.
This is the world.
The Taj Mahal or whatever it is in India. I'm not an expert on all that. It's just like, just chuck in some stock footage of all of those places. So it did show something like that, and it looked like a map of Earth and like circled, and then anyway, Simo comes in and kind of shuts that USB
what are you doing?
shit down.
And Peter come in. Peter comes in, and
but that's kind of Peter. I don't think
he doesn't come in yet.
No, I don't think he did there.
Bella
and we
and
cut
Dennis.
from that to Bella and Dennis having a nice little moment together, and they're letting go of that's what Dennis says. Oh, there's $10,000 in this. Letting go. $10,000 in this bum bag. He throws it on the
using
fire.
cash anymore.
Can you imagine what that would burn like? $10,000 in Australian plastic money
It would
in
stink.
a bum bag. It would
terrible.
stink. It would smoke up. It would. Oh, you wouldn't be able to sit around
It's
that.
a fanny pack.
It was a fanny pack.
He said you can't say it in Australia. Come on, please.
Bum bag.
And then so
And
Bella is
she-
encouraged
she-
to let something go.
Yeah, she lets go of the phone.
Chucks her phone, which I was going to say.
Which would burn just as badly.
I said to my wife, that lithium battery in there, you don't want that in a fire. You'll remember those, the Samsung Note 9 got taken over, it wasn't landing on airplanes because it tended to explode. Yeah.
Anyway, so...
I certainly hope she didn't have any photos or anything she wanted to keep a hold of.
Well, I think she did. She was filming herself earlier, wasn't she? So I think she did. But anyway...
Filming of yourself.
Yeah, but it was all about her mum and,
Yeah.
Peter has come in then with the alien, and he says the only way to win is to kill as many of these things as possible to make them leave.
Yeah, to make it too expensive for them to stay. Which is...
Makes sense.
It is a valid military tactic.
Yeah.
You don't actually have to kill all of them.
No.
You just have to make it cheaper to leave than to stay.
Yeah.
Once it becomes... And this is what happened in
Europe.
European warfare all the time was largely about... because this is if you go back before standing paid for armies and the development of war bonds, that was a major financial instrument that was introduced to allow standing armies for invasion. You go back before that, it was basically the Lord, King Henry. He rallied around all of his lords and said, "Okay, gather up your dudes."
Yep.
And so he would go around to all of his knights and say, "Okay, all of you knights go around to your villages and gather up your people."
Yep.
And they would all form up, and most of the way they were paid, because while they're doing that, they're not farming.
No.
But the reason they do it is in part because they're kind of obliged to, but they got the spoils of war. So they went across to France and they go smash a town. You get to pillage it.
Yeah.
You take whatever you can and you can bring it back.
Yeah.
So the idea of defending against that was you didn't have to kill the armies or anything. You just had to stop them from fighting you long enough that it became too expensive to keep the army there, because people would just leave. They'd go, like knights would sort of, lords would sort of go, while I'm here, no one's tending the crops and I'm not getting any money in to buy food because we're not winning. We're not smashing places.
Yes.
So, you only have to make it more expensive. And then once it becomes, this threshold is passed, people just start leaving. They go, I can't afford it.
You're not paying me enough.
Because it was, as I said, war bonds became a thing, and then suddenly the government could just gather up all the money it needed to maintain a standing army, and then you could have dreadful World War I, for example, and World War II, where And then and a lot of these other wars, Napoleonic wars and things,
Yeah.
were because the government can now afford to carry
That's
a
right.
standing army and thus kill more people.
So on that, Peter just does that method, which is just beats the living daylights out of the alien.
Smashes the alien.
And I guess what's important is not so much that, but Simmons just sits there and watches him. He doesn't stop him. He doesn't try to alleviate the alien or anything. And the others, like Amelia and the farmer, are not happy about
They're a bit
that.
horrified by it, and so you should be, really.
Yeah, it's a pretty brutal, good old baseball bat bashing.
I don't think it really matter what living creature someone went at like that. You wouldn't be happy about it.
No. And it's interesting because as a film, Sparke decided in this scene to then intercut that of Peter bashing the alien.
I love this,
brain
actually.
He juxtapositioned it with then Bella and Dennis getting it on in this, it was a kind of really nice shot. It's in a tunnel, the rain's pouring down, and you don't see anything. I mean, it's very G-rated, but the young couple getting it on in this tunnel. But it's cut between that and Peter living daylights out of this alien. Blood spraying. It's interesting, isn't it?
If Dennis knew that was happening, do you think he would have been as amorous for Peter's daughter at the time?
Well,
But I did like that.
It's interesting.
I like that view of the tender moment of the couple coming together with then the opposite of a tender moment of a couple coming together.
Yeah. And maybe that's the thing, and it'd be good again to speak with the director about this, because maybe it was that, we've seen films like this, these epic films from Hollywood, and there is those love scenes in the middle, and they're a bit like, ugh, do we really,
shouldn't you be fighting a war or something?
They're fighting aliens, and sure, this is a bit of a B story, and all of a sudden, she's ripping her top off, and they're going for it on the top of a car or whatever it is. It's like, okay, well, it's like believable, but it's almost like it's a bit awkward. Whereas by putting it cutting it between this violent scene, it made it a bit more reasonable or something. I don't know.
I think it
didn't feel as awkward. Maybe
you got a bit more meaning out of it. You get that at one time there's this horror occurring whilst at the same time Peter was beating an alien to death.
Yeah.
You see what I did there? Swapped it around. Yeah, pretty funny.
Which in Peter's mind, and that's what happens in a scene coming up, basically, is then he threatens Dennis, away from my stepdaughter.
Well, he finds the sketches.
He says it really well. Do you notice? He said, she's my stepdaughter. But the way he said it, it's he was in that zone of possession. She's mine. But then he's like stepdaughter. It was a really nice. He made that line work. Good old Tamara Morrison. Once were the Warriors. How can you fight that guy? Simo, after this, announces it's time for a major attack. They're going to collect supplies. They're going to go in. They're just going hard. Now it's time that what does he say? Something along the lines of we might die, but I'm sick of waiting around to die.
And there's point out, no, wait, everyone's tired. There's going to be mistakes made.
Why wait?
It's not the right time.
Yeah. Meanwhile, this is where Amelia investigates her own. She discovers, the alien crops and the prisoners are digging away and all that sort of stuff. And she grabs a Buddha's hand, which is supposed to be the alien crop. But, that is an actual plant.
Yeah.
As we said earlier.
Bit of citrus. Well, hey, what are you going to do when you've got to come up with an alien plant?
Sure, whatever.
Much easier
That's
to
use. That's a lot
it.
cheaper and easier to do, isn't it? And it looks it. It looks it.
It looks pretty alien.
And anyway, in all this sort of commotion, so half of the boys and the ladies have gone off to do this major attack with Simo. Amelia's off investigating something on her own. So the camp is a bit, down on numbers. She goes into labour.
Yeah.
And the rain starts pouring. And with that, she goes into labour. Then they're attacked. They're attacked, of course. So the base is attacked. The team that are going out to they're doing a scavenge hunt before their attack on the aliens. They're actually they're attacked from a higher force. So they're really, inundated with these numbers.
Yeah.
Anyway, and then Vanessa's, it's great cutting this editing because we're cutting between all these different moments. And while Vanessa's trying to, she's trying to get birth happening, going into the process of it, Seth, he starts to kind of get a bit,
he's freaking
panicked
Well,
over
you're
the
getting that
noise.
shot of like him looking around, and then there's like a shot of the aliens blowing some up.
Yeah.
Shot of him looking a bit worried, and the shot of the aliens doing something dreadful, and people running and screaming.
And explosions.
And then there's like aliens coming towards him.
Yeah.
And he says, "You've got to be quiet."
Yeah.
And because she's screaming.
Yeah.
I'm surprised any of them aren't just screaming.
Yeah.
And he tries to go at her with a stick.
Yeah, he tries to muffle her. Like he literally, and this is where good old Pete like kicks in, he tackles him, and they basically have a fight to Seth's death.
Yes.
You know, like
as you'd
it's an
expect.
accidental death, but you know, they were going at it hard. The baby is born, which is great, you know, triumph there before the aliens have kind of descended upon them. And then Vanessa dies.
Yeah, which doesn't surprise me. Like my wife and I were sitting there watching this and we're going, she's not going to do well out of this. Like it's a rainstorm whilst being attacked by aliens, life and death. This is not a good combination for trying to give birth. No. And it's a first childbirth. It's not like her fifth child and she's knows the process and procedures and her body's used to it.
Oh, fifth child.
Yeah, out she goes.
The vagina is ready to go in that concept from my experience.
So so she died in childbirth. Yeah, bit sad.
And Simo in his big gun battle with the aliens, he's actually shot and knocked unconscious.
Yes, which I think is sort of a reference back to the fact that the reason he was out of AFL was because he had like a 30-day coma or something funny.
So he sort of had some previous brain trauma, which can, you know, come back around. And when everything is just looking dire and they're all in trouble, the Australian Army rock up.
This was a nice touch. You know what I really liked about this? It did show I suppose another juxtaposition between the guerrilla fighting as best they could sort of stuff. And when the Australian military armed forces are in there, they're just sort of walking through, yep, you go there, you do that. You know, like they're really well organised, and the sniper and his spotter, but that's a nice touch.
Yeah, it was.
And I saw on the Sparke Films website that they do military film, like acting advising. Yeah. So that was a nice touch because usually, they tend to show snipers just running around the place with a gun shooting people. In reality, they work in teams. And so it was a nice sort of touch there.
It was.
And and
they came in very much
the coordination
coordinated.
And you sort of went, oh, okay, these guys know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And you thought the other guys were doing pretty well. Like Simo and his crew were doing pretty well, but you realised that they were a little bit ragtag.
Yes.
And this is how it's actually done. So it did give a feeling of safety as well.
It did.
Because you suddenly thought, oh, okay, man, they got this sorted out.
They did. So they're taken back to an army base, and they're actually told by I'll call him the commander. I don't know if that was his actual. I think it was. Yeah, no, I'm not too sure. But yeah, the commander there, he actually says to them that they came out here looking for them because they heard that there was this resistance in the forest.
Yeah.
That was actually doing a bit of damage. And so they actually came out to try to help them and find them.
They were a bit inspired
They were a bit inspired by it to come back and attack again. So that was interesting. It's also revealed that all the major cities are flooded because of something to do with the spaceship being too close.
I made that very same comment when that big spaceship there was up there. I said, that thing is going to have gravitational effects.
Yes.
Like you can't have something that massive.
So that's
that
an interesting.
Close.
I liked that because I thought of you because of the science factor. But I thought, oh, that's an interesting. So it's like, you know, we see these films where they blow the living shit out of big cities, but it's like maybe just a huge spaceship coming down would just kind of cause enough devastation to the gravitational pull. You know, it's interesting, isn't it? It's like maybe you don't need to blow the crap out of things; just literally get close enough.
You probably wouldn't get like an instant problem.
No.
But this is 8-9 months
That's
after
true,
their
yeah,
arrival.
so it's causing problems.
That would really mess with weather patterns and tidal forces.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get a big change of things going on there.
So, yeah, we're told the cities are flooded, like governments don't really exist, the leaders are all in hiding or ran away, and really it's just kind of what's left is what's left in terms of military presence against this invading force. Peter says that he wants to now leave. Like, look, you're with the army. It's time for Bella and me to leave and find his wife. But Amelia really pleased with him to stay, and she says she'll help find his wife, but we've got to stay together. We then they get drawn in. The Colonel, good old Jacqueline McKenzie here, great Australian actress, been in loads of films and things over the years. She plays the big Colonel. And she informs them that they know that in that factory they've been building a weapon, a virus, to really wipe out the human race.
Move it into Sydney.
They want to move it to Sydney.
They have moved it to Sydney, is what she says.
Yeah, they have moved it to Sydney.
So they need a diversion attack, and rescuing the people from the
country
factory
folk, who really gets
would be a good diversion because it would. The factory is still important to them, and all those people. So that's the plan. They're going to do that.
Yeah, so they'll do that as a diversion while then they send in every last plane, helicopter, whatever, into Sydney to try to
this is a nice way to avoid having to have too many aeroplanes and helicopters in the final battle of the country town. Otherwise, you were sort of going, well, why is the Air Force not attacking this factory at the end? The reason is because they're all in Sydney, which is hours and hours away.
That's right. And so the gang, she says the gang are kind of basically, you're welcome to help us. We'd like you to help us because you know the terrain and you know the situation.
You got the local knowledge.
But it's up to you. And so the gang is kind of a bit disbanded. Amelia is the one that's gung-ho. Jackson says, I'm out.
Yeah, I got a bubby.
I have a baby now.
And Simo is still unconscious.
Simo's unconscious, but Amelia's keen. Peter, we think, is going to leave to find his wife. But as the army get all ready, the commander's getting ready to do his thing. Amelia comes out, and then they all do come out, apart from Jackson and Simo. And they're like, oh, no, we are still a group, and we're going to do this together. And that's where the commander says a great line where Amelia says, what's the plan then? And he goes, cause a distraction, get your people out, and save the fucking planet.
Yeah, I love to save the planet.
It's kind of almost like he's saying, it's pretty much the plot of every other film, but that's what we're doing. But I like it. They kind of get into position, but communications drops off. And the commander's saying...
there's not enough resistance happening.
It's a bit weird.
You think too easy to approach.
Something is wrong. He's not happy with it.
It's a trap.
And the colonel says it's a trap.
It's a trap.
It's a good old-fashioned trap. So.
Of course, Simo used the line, if you want to live, come with me, which is earlier in the film. I personally quite enjoy that.
Yeah.
And I would have taken the opportunity to say that as well.
You should have.
Shall we continue on now?
We should. So it is a trap, and they never move the virus. That's what she's sort of revealing. Anyway, Jackson's like, what's going on? Like, we need to go help our group.
This is the final battle here in this country town.
Yeah.
How about that?
I know. It's a nice little twist. And the colonel tells Jackson, well, there's no more help. I can't send any more men in. It would be suicidal.
Suicide mission.
And she doesn't want to do that, which is totally fair enough. So he goes and wakes Simo up with a bucket of water.
Well, waggles his legs first to see if that helps.
Yeah, but a bucket of water, that's all you need to get someone out of a coma.
Bucket of water splash on. He jumps up and gives him a rundown of what's going on.
That's pretty easy. And they go off, and it's basically the major battle, isn't it? So it's the team in the army do a good old-fashioned huge battle scene attack on the field.
It's lovely.
There's slow motion, there's machine guns, there's lasers.
Initially, it looks like it's working well, but then the aliens have a counter-strike.
The alien commander, the Cape, he has like a big laser gun thing.
Yeah, I was wondering where those sort of things, because often aliens are depicted having rather pointless weapons.
Yeah.
That kind of go. Pew,
no,
pew,
he
pew.
has a big sort of
he has this stinger that just fires a big blast everywhere, which was gratifying to see. It's also nice to see then the commander and the army commander have a one-off. Yeah, that's nice. He should have worn a cape too.
He should have in that moment, shouldn't he? And Amelia gets shot and rolls over, and she gets back up. Meanwhile, Simo and Jackson, they break in the back door while all this crap's going on. They just kind of get in, don't they? And Jackson goes off, and he does the good old setting up of the explosives, and they free the prisoners. They get them out. Simo plugs his USB, the alien USB thing in, and this is where he sees again, I was still not completely clear on this, but it looked like there was 2 aliens overlooking the whole thing on a spaceship or something. But then it also looked like there was a mother planet, like a satellite image of a mother planet circling.
He mentions they've been planning this for years or something
Yeah,
like that.
so it looked like all this information about Earth. Anyway, this alien comes out and he's cornered, but he holds... Sorry, he takes an alien that's got this crystal thing, so that must be the virus weapon, doesn't it?
I mean, it looks like the virus weapon because it's in a crystal container and it's got sort of a slightly glowing yellowy green fluid.
So he's got this special...
We all know from long cinema experience that's something dangerous.
Important, yes. Anyway, this alien commander comes out and he can talk English now.
Oh.
I know. So they sort of have a standoff about the crystal, and he says, well, if we need to kill to survive, we will.
Yeah, he tells them that our home world is destroyed.
Yeah.
And we've got nowhere else to go. We know we have to come here.
Yeah.
And there's not many left of them. There's actually like this big spaceship and most of it. There's not actually that many. Which would explain the drones, for example. Yeah. And their dead world also explains why their life viewing helmets are not well attuned to operation on Earth.
Yeah.
Because I guess for God knows how many generations they've not been in a
living world
filled with life.
Yes. So the military move in, and the military base has been attacked. So the army do attack. The helicopters then come in, like the leftover helicopters from Sydney.
Yeah, I
think they pop up. There's a couple of them that pop up and they provide a bit of help, but then they're also shot down with the drones. We have the commander fights the commander 101, and the Aussie one is beaten to a pulp. And just then the prisoners kind of have a moment where they have that same realization that in fact we should get involved in this and attack, shouldn't we? And they do, and they start overpowering their soldiers. And the alien commander is confused by that. And it just gives
because he steps forward to say something.
Yeah.
And behind him,
he pops up with
the Aussie commander pushes the gun around and point blank range.
Yeah, as a last
shoots him off into the distance.
He does.
But you
disintegrates. Simmons is sort of having a standoff, and he like flees, but he gets shot. He's then in hiding, and the aliens come on top of him, and then he's on his own, and then he escapes. And then he's on his own. And he gets on the radio, and he says to anyone out there, and then Amelia actually answers, and he tells her that look, he's got the crystal, he'll blow everything up, sacrificing himself. Good old sacrifice yourself.
Why not?
For the greater good. She doesn't want him to do that, of course, because she loves him. But he says goodbye. He says his goodbyes, and he says it's for the greater good and blah blah blah, doesn't he?
It's always nice when people say something's for the greater good, and it's themselves they're sacrificing, not someone else.
Yeah, it is better.
That's how you know the good guys versus the bad guys. The bad guys always sort of say you have to die for the greater good.
That's right.
Like, why is it that the greater good includes you?
Yes, that's it.
I don't trust that, but he's doing the other way around. So
but then Jackson rocks up actually, and he's so then they're together and they do a good old footy pass of the crystal.
Yeah, this safe
they do
hands.
a roll, and so but then Jackson's blown over and dying. So he says, I'll take the hit, run, get out of here. And he takes the heat, and he's just yelling out, "Take care of my little girl! Take care of my little girl!" And he's firing on
Okay, yeah, sure.
Yeah, sure. And Simo's just doing the old-fashioned, Bruce Willis slow run out of the factory kind of thing, but it looks like he's still in the factory, sorry. So then we see Jackson dying, saying, "Take care of my little girl," and then he pushes the button.
Adrian!
Allison!
Vanessa! Whoever you are!
The daughter's called Allison. I'm pretty sure he does say, Allison!
Yeah, Allison.
And before that detonates, there is a good sort of montage, slow motion of all the main characters.
Yeah, where they're up to in the
they're
battles.
all kind of battling their own little things, aren't they? They're either having a fight, firing their gun, running into battle, whatever they're doing. They're all having these one-on-one situations. And even the farmer, I think, has got the baby while the bomb's coming over the head and stuff like that. and Jackson detonates it.
Yeah, he's like...
There's the good old-fashioned...
He does what he's supposed to do.
Explosion. And basically the aliens have to then... The leftover aliens have to surrender, so they're all arrested. Peter gets his wife back and his child. You know, Bella gets her mum. You know, they're all happy families again. In the military say, in Sydney, there was a bit of a pushback, so they sort of had a bit of success actually.
Yeah.
The kind of defences were down a bit. Simmons hands the weapon over to the military. You know, he kind of comes out of the smoke and haze and he's actually all right. So Amelia reunites with him. And then the prison soldiers, and this is that nice moment that Amelia then goes up and she says, you know, trust me, give me a knife. And the alien's standing there. You think, well, is she going to stab it? What's she going to do? But she actually cuts the handcuff away and offers the alien her hand, like a handshake, and says, you know, will you share the world with us? Will you help us? You know, so
rebuild. Because this comes off the back of something that was really good. I liked what she said there when she's seen the base get blown up and the mother with child, I assume it's mother with child alien, and she says to Simo, it's funny we keep calling him Simo, he's never referred to Simo, but says to Simo, said, they're here to stay, they're not going anywhere. You know, it's like Christopher Columbus, Captain Cook.
Yeah.
Every time in the history, you know, we just, we've got a chance to do something different and work with them. You know, which I liked that. And that would be a really hard thing to think of because Simo's reaction is the gut reaction that everyone has, which is, well, no.
Let's just blow them out of the water.
I want the life that I choose and not be forced into choosing some other life.
Yeah. Which,
of course, you know, I can't think of any colonized people that might have thought that themselves at some point in history. But it was really nice that there was that sort of, hey, pointing out, hey, you do realize we're now in that situation.
Yeah.
Where the foreigners have come here and have said, yeah, we're here now. This is our stuff.
Yep.
And so it's really good that I liked that ending that she came there. It wasn't we blew the mothership up and wiped them all out. You know, we made it too expensive for them to continue, basically. Yeah. Instead, it was a case of they kind of did. They took away that viral weapon, which would have decided that it was going to go one way.
Yeah.
And now it's just like, okay, now we don't have that big decision happening. Why don't we just make this a bit better? Because we could all do it. It's a nice message, and that's that hope that comes out of here. Not only
of course
did all these people come together and unite against an enemy, but they also came together to unite with the enemy.
Yeah.
Against, I suppose, the larger enemy, which is continued warfare and destruction. Yeah. Which I don't think many of the aliens really want.
No, well, not if they want to kind of take over the planet properly, do they? So anyway, that's a nice moment. And then we have this last scene of that. Then they're coming together. Amelia does a bit of a voiceover telling us, the audience, that they've had to come together, that some of the aliens joined forces, but then there's the force in Sydney and I suppose maybe in other big cities or wherever around the world, but not all of them agree. And so we have this great sort of epic shot of them entering a really destroyed Sydney Opera House.
But you know it's Sydney because of the Opera House. Yeah.
It's a broken down, and they're all looking militarized.
We'll ignore the fact that the Sydney Opera House is like really central Sydney. So they've had to go through, I don't know, about 20 kilometres or so of Sydney
to get to that point.
Before they reach that point.
But it's always, it's symbolic, isn't it? And they're coming there it looks like they're coming up to have a fight with obviously probably another military force, So and that's how it ends. That's the end, which is great. So it's a fantastic science fiction action blockbuster of a film, isn't it?
It's huge concepts and a big to set this in a small Aussie town, but then have the stakes global. I mean, it's sort of like Independence Day.
It is.
And I made the joke to my wife while watching it when they come up and they're going to say their big thing, and I say, and today was January 26th, and today January 26th will be known as Australia Day for all the world.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they didn't quite go that cheesy, did they?
No.
So it was an amazing viewing experience. I mean, I really put this down to something like Independence Day. I think this is a kind of a match up to it.
Well,
and I've
yeah.
never really, like we said at the start with Hamid, I've never really seen an Australian film probably hit something like this out that really does go head to head with a big blockbuster that.
It's pushing its way up there, I think.
Seen, I don't know if you ever saw When the World Ends Tomorrow. Is that what it's
Tomorrow
called?
When
the World Ends. Yeah,
when the war starts.
When the war ends, and that's sort of an epic film. It's supposed to be big, but I think this takes it to another level. And
Tomorrow When the War Began.
Tomorrow When the War Began. That's it. Sorry, yeah, I'm a bit out of it. And that was trying to be a big blockbuster, and this is trying to be a big blockbuster. I think this one really ticks, those boxes. And I think if you're someone that really likes those big action kind of adventure, multi-character stories, this really is quite an amazing feat for good old Sparke, because I think he's done really well. So to me, it's like you get to the end of this film and you really want some alien butt kicked, but then humanity survives. And in fact, it's kind of better than those other alien films that I've seen, because we're now joining forces with the aliens. We're kind of bringing them together.
And I think that gives a genuine feeling of hope at the end.
It does.
If it was just more killing and more warfare, you're sort of thinking, well,
what's the point? Yeah,
where does it end? What, we're just going to go back to what we used to have?
Yeah, that's right.
Because I've got to tell you, what we have right now could be done with a bit of improvement.
It could.
So, on the other hand, however, that alien force comes in, they were the occupying force, so they were coming to colonize, and then they turn around and sort of say, well, we're willing to work together.
Let's work together. Let's not be
colonized. Go,
yeah,
okay, I guess we'll give that a shot too. Yeah. And suddenly you go, okay, that's better than what we've had now.
That's true,
past.
Yeah.
This is not just a repeat of...
No.
This is not just a revenge fantasy movie. This is a corporation fantasy movie.
Yes.
Which is nice. And it's nice to have that more positive ending rather than trying to tell you that destroying a spaceship populated by tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of individuals, trying to pretend that destroying that is a good thing.
Yeah. Let's cheer on killing everything. Yeah.
I suppose again, if they were all space Nazis, which is what a lot of these movies present the aliens as, sure, it's a good thing. But in this case, they weren't space Nazis; they were space colonists.
That's right. And they were trying, and they were genuinely looking for a home. And I guess the deeper thing, whether the writer or director wanted this, but you could say, well, that might be us one day. If we keep destroying our planet, we might all have to shift off the planet and look for another planet. So what happens then? We would be like this colonizing force, wouldn't we?
You betcha.
And I wouldn't put it past us, because we look at the world and even look at the, we're talking about the moon and Mars and stuff, and we're not really worrying about other Martian life, are we? We're just taking our own existence onwards, aren't we? That's what we're thinking about. So what about the ladder, Surrey? This one goes on to our everyday ladder. For me, I am putting it in right at number 22. We've got a list of, that's your one there. We've got a list of now 28 on the everyday ladder. So we're really doing quite a few Space Brain episodes now. But for me, I'm going to put it in at number 22, which comes just after Pitch Black and goes in before The Wandering Earth. And you know what? I really thought this is a good example next to The Wandering Earth, because The Wandering Earth is kind of like a Chinese blockbuster. Yeah. And I felt like this is an Australian blockbuster. I haven't seen many Australian blockbusters. They don't get done. But I felt like it kind of matched a lot of those beats of The Wandering Earth, actually. So for me, it's like that. It does tick a lot of boxes. There's some great science fiction in here, some great special effects. I loved the aliens. And it does kind of fit more into that huge blockbuster feel. So that's where I'm going to put it in, is number 22.
Similar there, and the Darkest Dawn, Wandering Earth. The Darkest Dawn was a similar one. Aliens arriving.
Aliens, big alien invasion.
Likewise, it was sort of set in a smaller town environment.
Yep.
Certainly solidly in there, and I'm keen to see, like, there's a sequel to this movie coming out.
Yeah.
And it's ramping up the budget. It'd be interesting to see, like, this film, I think, was about a $6 million budget. That's what Wikipedia says.
Yeah.
I'm sure Sparke Films could more accurately portray that.
Yeah.
But it's got to be in that sort of ballpark.
Yeah.
What would it be able to do with, the $150 million, $200 million sort of budgets that these big, blockbuster films have?
Yeah, I know, yeah. And that's the thing. If you throw, if you're saying 6 million, something like Independence Day back in the mid-90s had a couple of $100 million, so you throw a couple of $100 million at this and it's on par with that.
Oh, yeah.
Well and truly, yeah, definitely. What about a best scene? What stood out to you? What was a little bit of a favourite scene for yourself?
One of my favourite scenes is the factory at the end. Simo is coming in past the through the back door, and you got this nice, bright sort of light outside. The inside is dim. It's like just some nice lighting in there, and he steps forward, and he just steps up, and he sees some aliens, and the aliens see him, and as he's stepping up, he steps up into a patch of light that goes across his eyes as he delivers. I can't remember what line he delivers, to tell you the truth, but he delivers some line and to shoot, and it was just a beautiful scene that sort of brought up, and the light just hit at the right spot, and marvelous composition there, I think.
Yeah. That was a cool scene.
It's a great scene. The other one, of course, is the love scene interposed
juxtaposition,
with the
Peter.
death scene, the beating scene, the violence.
Yeah, love versus death. Yeah,
that was. I particularly paid attention to that.
Me too.
And appreciated it, and like, it took me a little bit into that scene to realize that I was appreciating it for that. Like, it's not like I wasn't being all critical and analytical about it.
No.
It was like I was going, "Oh, this is really good. Why am I enjoying this?" Oh, right, because he's gone, ape shit on the alien, while the other two are having a pash out.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that those two scenes, I think they were top quality scenes. You wouldn't find better arrangements in any in other films.
Yeah, definitely.
Except for maybe 2001: Space Odyssey.
I really liked the overall alien attack scene, just way back at the start with the football field, going the lights out. I liked that it played off that idea of a real country town feel of these glowing lights coming towards them, people kind of going, "What's going on?" As we said,
the mayor,
someone paid for this? Like,
someone mentioned that to the mayor, doesn't he? Says,
so that naivety of like what was coming towards them, and then even like a lot of people were filming.
Yeah, they pulled out their cameras.
And there was a nice bit where I think Marcus was trying to focus on his phone camera as well, like what the light was, and there was this impending doom as an audience member, but the small town.
You're waiting for the first shots to be fired.
Yeah, and like you were waiting for that. There was a good moment of tension and there's almost like a bit of, and I have seen this in a couple of other films where it's like before destruction, there's a bit of beauty. So it was almost beauty in like the coloured lights and all that. So I just liked that, like when the scene unfolded, it was all good, and I thought that was really well done with the explosions and the aliens, and I really did like when the soldiers entered the town. But I just really liked that anticipation of those lights and the way the town reacted. I felt like it was very realistic. It's a little bit Simpsons, isn't it? Like, like the way the crowd, little small country town react to something like that. I really liked that. And then even just not that long later in the film, when they're in the farmhouse and those two soldiers enter, I kind of really like that. Like it reminded me of Signs, the M. Night Shyamalan film, again, where like, in that the aliens come down and again, it's like an alien per person. And it kind of, to me, if we have an alien invasion, it's sort of, we are such a huge population that it almost, well, there's 7 billion of us on the planet. They need 7 billion aliens maybe to kind of attack, And so this idea of like one-on-one combat and what it would be the difference between that. And to me, it was very obvious that, the film was trying to suggest we need to come together as a group to then overcome a power, a more powerful being. And if we don't, we probably get eliminated pretty quickly. And so I just thought that was really cool. I think I always prefer that sort of it's more interesting if it's like genuinely an alien creature versus a human, and what would happen in a battle like that, and what it takes to overcome, those different powers. So I really liked that. What about the science? Sorry, what do you want to talk about the science in this film?
Well, biological warfare.
Yeah.
A very interesting case. There's a controversial case, in fact, here, biological warfare in Australia.
Yeah.
Yes, back in 1798.
Jeez.
Sorry, 1789.
That long ago? What? We were not doing biological warfare there.
1789. Oh, biological warfare has been going back for millennia. The who are they? The
English?
I didn't want to say the Huns were chucking like plague victims over walls, and there's been poisoning of wells and so forth. But in this case here, there was a smallpox outbreak amongst the Aboriginal population of Australia, 1789, around Port Phillip. Where is it? Yeah, so there's a claim basically that it was being used, intentionally released, because it's not disputed whether there was an outbreak.
Yep.
There was, but the question comes down to, was it intentionally released in order to decimate the population, as it was done in the United States before it was the United States, when it was the colonies. The British military handed out infected rugs and so forth, because the smallpox had been ravaging Europe and Asia for a long time. Yeah, there's evidence in mummies from Egypt, 3,000-year-old mummies of smallpox scars. So they're thinking this is something that's been coming and going a lot.
Yep.
And it's it's about a 30% death rate, and the people who don't die, a lot of them go blind, massive, terrible scarring. It's very, very unpleasant disease. I keep saying the United States. It wasn't the United States at the time. It was the colonies, the frontier colonies. There was about an up to 90% death rate amongst the Native Americans. And that's because the Europeans have been exposed to smallpox a lot. In fact, there was a vaccination process called variolation. That's named after vaccination. But anyway, where they would purposefully infect people with there's two strains of the smallpox. They did the lesser one, which had a better chance of survival. And people still died from this, but it didn't. It wasn't until cowpox was used and the actual vaccination was done that it was done. But in 1789, the other assertion is that smallpox was not recorded amongst. There was no smallpox victims or outbreaks recorded amongst the First Fleet colonists.
Right.
Colonists, military.
Mm-hmm.
Which means they're sort of saying that there was no live smallpox come across, and it's highly unlikely the ocean voyage would have allowed smallpox to survive.
Yep.
But instead, there were Aboriginal people were trading with Indonesians and Papua New Guineans up in the north, and they did have the occasional smallpox. So they reckon that maybe it was just an unfortunate coincidence that there was a movement amongst the local Aboriginals, which exposed them to traders from the north, and they got it. But there's so there's back and forward on this situation here. I'm not going to take a stance, but it's entirely.
I would like to take a stance.
But smallpox has been used by the British military
previously
in those centuries. It's now banned. Of course, there was a lot of research through World War II regarding these viral agents and so forth. Japan, in particular, used biological attacks to, in an effort to defeat China and so forth. They also killed a lot of their own people by accident, but it's since been banned. And it was just really interesting to have a look at this. And smallpox is so good because it spreads by droplets in the air. And I was just reading that they're saying that the best situation for transmission, and this might sound familiar, is if you're within sort of 1.8, 1.5 meters for more than about 15 minutes. Which I realize now, actually, that's probably why we've been given that advice.
Yeah.
To limit contact, keep social distance, and not spend long times. Because they found that in a house or a building or a hospital, like just being in that sort of proximity is almost no transmission.
Yeah.
But it's, within the sort of distance that we are, if we're for more than 15 minutes, high level of transmission.
Yeah. Well, I've been saying this whole time I don't want to be in the same room as you. I wish the producers could put me in a separate room. That has nothing to do with the coronavirus. That's just to do with our relationship.
I will talk to the producers about this.
Yeah, the producers need to do it. I want to be behind a closed screen next time. Thank you.
See what happens. Yeah. But anyway, So
yeah, that is interesting.
So biological, and the reason biological warfare is so attractive, and something that they're worried about, or has been a lot of worry, is with genetic engineering developed.
Yeah, right.
If you could, for example, find a genetic marker that signaled out a particular racial group.
Right. Yep.
Then perhaps you could create a variation on the influenza which only affected that group.
Particular racial group, yeah.
Yes, and that's, of course, somewhat debunked because mostly the world is not that well delineated by genotypes. The strongest grouping of single genetic origin is Iceland, and there's just not that many people that want to kill Icelanders.
No,
just
they're cute, aren't they?
There's a what, few 100,000, a few million. Like this, it's not a big country, but not many people go there, or not many people come out. So it's a very there's been a lot of genetic research done on the Iceland population because they've got such a stable gene pool.
Yeah.
But other gene pools, like Japan, for example, has got people that have come over from Korea, from China. There's a local sort of more indigenous population there as well, and there's been mixing amongst all of that. Not to mention the fact that then you had the Jesuit missionaries that were over in Japan from the, I want to say, 1500s. So
yeah, so it's
trying to sort of just go, well, we're going to
do a genetic marker.
We're going to be the master race by killing off everyone who is of, Eastern European descent. You go, well, that's most of the world. Yeah. Okay, well, just of African descent. I'm sorry, that is all of the world.
We've all got some percentage.
You kind of, Denisovians? They're already dead. Oh, well.
The alien race.
What about Homo florensis? Also already dead. Yeah, so anyway. But alien race, there would be such a divergence of...
There would be.
Biology there that, yes, you could...
But it wouldn't take long for an alien and a human to hook up, I don't think, once we got on the same page.
Well, yeah, they have big eyes. Like...
They got gorgeous big black eyes.
Flicker their eyelids at me.
Right.
I just want to tap them.
Yeah. Extremely painful for them, sorry.
It's probably outrageously painful.
Yeah.
But they got such big eyes.
They do.
Anyway. So that's sort of the science here. It's biological warfare. It's illegal. Smallpox was eradicated. It exists only as a couple of samples in a few germ labs. And the only reason they've been debating whether they should destroy those as a symbolic, hey, we won type of thing. They've realized that, smallpox probably came from a rat in Central or South America somewhere. And if another one comes out, because there's a lot of rainforest there.
Yeah.
And is it all similar to smallpox? We'll probably want to have some comparison subjects.
Right. Yeah.
1977 was the last confirmed smallpox in Sri Lanka. 3-year-old girl. They isolated, put guards, and a 1.5-mile radius around the house. They vaccinated everyone. And as a result, no more transmission. And that's the sort of thing we need to do. And that's why vaccination is genuinely important.
Yep, definitely.
Particularly for life-threatening illness like smallpox. It's terrible.
Yeah.
Polio. All those things terrible. Not anymore, though, thankfully.
because of vaccines.
Yes.
I probably don't really need to say a lot about technicalities of filmmaking because we've sort of talked at length of them. I mean, I'm just astounded. This film, like the cinematography was beautiful. It really stood up. There was lots of, as I was saying earlier, with the battle scenes, we really flicked through a lot of shots. We didn't just have the one standard shot going on. We went drone shots, we went low angle shots, point of view shots, cameras on the gun shots. We saw from the aliens, we saw from the prisoners, we saw from, the military guard. It was really quickly edited. And in fact, overall, the editing was really great. We've talked about that great juxtapositioning scene. We've also talked about, like, even when Vanessa gave birth, we were cutting from her giving birth to the soldiers attacking, to the aliens attacking, to the military group attacking. There was also, like, sort of a few moments set up in the editing, like Amelia, the big bright lights were put on her. You thought, well, she's being captured. No, she was actually being saved by the military. And the same earlier in the film with the alien, we thought being shot down. There's another alien. No, it turns into be the farmer's ute. Like, we have this clever use of editing throughout the film. I thought the costumes were great. Just saying, with the alien eyes. I mean, I thought they were really quite a realistic looking. And I wrote down a note, like, I've seen a lot of alien films over my time. Everything from Alien. You go Predator, those kind of classic things. But I've seen quite a few creepy horror alien films. There's a great one called Communion. And there's also a Rukta one, which I can't remember the name. I thought about it today. I probably should have Googled it. But it's just a kind of creepy farm one, a bit like something like Signs. Signs is another one. But that one, like, there's a little white alien dude in the corner of the farm. Like, it's not alien invasion as in, like, this film is just one alien's come to this farmer. Really scary little film. But this idea of the big bug eyes that you were just saying and stuff. But I thought they really did this well. These costumes looked great to me.
And the number of them. They had so many.
Yeah, they had so many of them. I also thought when they had the armor on, I really liked that. I liked the cut down the face on the armor that was lit up.
I also liked that was jaggedy.
Yeah.
It wasn't a smooth... Because a lot of times, if you go for, say, in Star Wars, the stormtroopers have a very mass-manufactured, symmetrical, and in fact, it even goes so far as to be black and white. It's clearly some sort of a stamped-out process.
Yep.
These aliens, I've also sort of seen, I suppose, Battlestar Galactica. You got the Cylons, which sort of the newer one. Mm-hmm. They had like this sort of vertical, like almost like a Grecian helmet type of thing, but it was all very smooth, clean cut. And these ones had the line down the middle of the face and was jaggedy, and red, and it kind of looked like a wound. Yeah, you could imagine then that maybe the intention was it was meant to sort of illustrate that these aliens were a bit wounded.
Maybe
they had a broken planet they come from. They weren't this smooth, well-integrated killing machine. They were a bit kind of damaged. Yep. I don't know if that's the intention.
Yeah, I don't know either. Or it's more like they're rough and rugged and tough in another way, they're kind of more, it's a more Mad Max sort of style, like put together kind of outfit, isn't it? It's a bit more like we're tough and we're renegades. But I thought they were great. I thought and the guns were really powerful and big and bright. They didn't look, even when the humans took them, they didn't look out of place. They looked like real guns to me. They pulled off them well. I also liked the fact that the humans could just fire them. Yes. Like it wasn't something that you had to be an alien to shoot this gun.
Because that was like District 9.
District 9, yeah, it does that.
Yeah, that would kind of indicate that it's a spacefaring, multi-conquering race that have had reason to have their weapons locked to themselves.
Yeah. It just suited the style of these aliens. I mean, District 9 has its own style, but it suited these aliens. I don't know why. Like, I liked that, being that it was this fight between the two, I suppose. So anyway, I think we've focused so much on a lot of those technicalities. I don't really. It's a very schmick, slick, sweet film, this one.
And it was put together in 6 months.
Yeah, and that's even more impressive, isn't it? Yeah,
that's from writing through and a 6-week filming schedule, very tight deadlines, and straight out. It's probably a good way of keeping the budget down.
Probably, yeah, definitely. I think if you're a fan of not only sci-fi, but if you just are into that kind of, you were mentioning some of that stuff, Babylon 5, yeah.
Actually, there's that movie Red Dawn, which is Russia invading America and a ragtag band, a band of guerrillas. This is the original Patrick Swayze one. There's a remake of it. I never saw that one, so I don't know if it's any good. But the original one, I would have been... When I saw it, I was 10. And it came out, I know it was... I didn't see it in the cinemas. I saw it on VHS. So it would have been a couple of years out already. Very similar concept in that is an invading force, a band of not military people, in this case high school students or something, have to try and they take it upon themselves to try and help their town or whatever.
Yeah, that's a pretty classic underdog story anyway.
It is. And
no matter what,
it really got me going, and I reckon the same thing. This movie here, I think if I was a 13-year-old boy, like the fantasy of being the gorilla, as a grown parent and all the rest of it, I'm looking at it thinking, oh no, that looks a bit rough. I would just want to be sitting in my armchair somewhere being relaxed. I've done enough of that. But as you
would be at the camp doing the wiring of the radios.
I'd be at the camp doing the nice, soft, gentle stuff. I've had enough rough and tumble in my life. But as a youngster, it's like the fantasy of being out there and like laying ambushes and fighting back the
Well, it is,
aliens.
isn't it? Like they're bringing in the Aussie military that, as you said before, they were efficient and controlled. But we need this ragtag team to come in and show us the terrain. It's like that's kind of the teenage boy fantasy in a way, isn't it?
The reality is, I think the military would have said, "Well, no, we don't. We'll get your intelligence, mark it on the maps."
Yeah,
and stuff,
that's right. And then we'll
because
go in.
The problem is that we'll shoot each other. And
you guys will shoot me.
We fight well. The army fights really well together, knows what to do, so that when someone says contact 3:00, all the army people know exactly what to do.
That's right. Yeah.
Whereas the other people go, "What do you mean?
What? Bang!
3:00? What does that mean? Hang on, 1, 2, over that way." Yeah.
Meanwhile, you're dead.
Yeah. So.
But it's a great big blockbuster. I've never seen probably Australian film as being such a big blockbuster. And I think if you're into your science fiction, action, reality kind of coming alive on the screen, this is your kind of film. But anyway, let us know what you thought about Occupation, and hopefully you're as excited as us to see the sequel. Maybe we can get a special screening of that, from Netflix or from the man himself. After listening to our episode, he'll invite us to the premiere. We can do a special episode with him.
I'll bring my pals James Cameron and Spielberg along to see it. Well, I'm pretty keen to see. Like, we've gotten some good science fiction coming out of Australia now. We've got the I Am Mother and the Other Life, and there's that other one we saw. I just
Cargo.
And this one here, which is again a different style to all of those. If the sequel builds on, expands, and really focuses in on all the good points we've been talking about here, we're going to see a bit of a, what do you call it, a golden age for Australian science fiction.
We can, and that will suit us space brains to a T, won't it?
And I think things like Netflix and Amazon Prime and so forth really help that, because suddenly, like Hamad was saying, you can get a global audience.
You can,
which means so an Australian science fiction like that has trouble getting funded because that's not what Australians want out of Australian film.
No.
But the locations and the setting and so forth is actually quite interesting and exotic to a lot of the rest of the world.
And then once you throw in the sophistication of movie making, like a film like this, special effects, costume, camera, that's what the global audience wants. So it's like, this is the thing, I agree. Like the Aussie audience, they're not necessarily going to fund for this, and that's why it doesn't get funded. That's the old reasons, right? But then now you can sort of say, but hang on, if we do fund this at a moderate price, we're talking about a global audience on something like Netflix and Stan
you can
and
actually
whatever.
get
you can actually get enough interest in it. So like Hamad said, that Netflix is looking for quality, not necessarily the big actors. He was saying that they're looking for quality stories, well made, well, like when he said all that, that's what Australian films actually quite often do. They're really well made. They're really well acted. They're really well put together.
Yeah.
Things like costume and stuff can be well and truly out there. Locations can be interesting and exotic. That's actually what Netflix is looking for. So why not support some more science fiction films like this one? So yeah, big kudos to Luke Sparke. We look forward to the sequel. Let us know what you thought about the film, Occupation. Let us know what you thought about what we've talked about tonight. And you can hit us up on our socials, can't you, Sorry?
At Space Brains Pod on Twitter. And also at Gravity Undone on Twitter. You're probably going to get more response there. At Space Brains Podcast Facebook, Space Brains Podcast Instagram.
Yep.
GravityUndone.net or markregan.com.
.au.
You can get a hold of it. We're pretty easy to get a hold of.
Yes.
Really. Hell,
yes.
if you Google Space Brains,
something comes up somewhere.
Something comes up. Yeah. Space Brains, probably your occupation podcast, something like that. Yeah.
Tune in next time for when we review the film Gantz Zero 2016. Available on Netflix. Catch you later.
See ya.